Hey everybody, it's Matt Larson. I just wanted to congratulate you on joining the REPS program. This is a program that's been years in the making. We've really dialed it in, and just like we were saying before, the education has really gone to the next level. I've learned more in the last 18 months than I think I have in the prior 8 years combined. So, this is going to be an amazing program. Again, if you've never done real estate before, this foundational fundamentals class I'm going to be showing and going over with you over the next few minutes is going to be crucial. If you have done a lot of deals and you're doing 2, 3, 5, 10 deals a month, I still think that everybody should go through this fundamentals foundational course, because you just never know what you forgot that you might have already learned before. So take a lot of notes. Don't get overwhelmed. This is an interactive course. So we're going to be learning a little bit, and I'm going to tell you to pause and then go do what I just taught you. I can't tell you enough how important it is to really get involved and be interactive. Just like when I read a book. Every time I read a book, if I go through something in that book and it says to do this or to take action with this, I stop what I do and I set the book down and I go do what it told me to do. That interactive piece helps you learn and absorb everything. We're going to be learning a lot over all these segments that we're going to be going through. And it's easily you could overwhelm yourself and only remember 5 or 10% if you don't get involved and you're not interactive. We really feel that this is the one piece that's going to take you to the next level and get you out there doing deals really fast. So obviously you can always go back and rewatch or take notes and stop and rewind and go back again. So I can't tell you enough how I want you to take as many notes as you can, get interactive, get involved, and really absorb all of this information. Okay, so the first thing is in this REPS program, we're going to be learning, learning all the fundamentals today. But this whole course is going to be talking about wholesaling. That's one segment. We're going to talk about fix and flip. That's another segment. We're going to talk about rental properties as a third segment, and the fourth segment is going to be the lease options. These are all encompassing, full court, learning process behind all of everything you need to learn in real estate. I'm going to show you guys how you can, take wholesaling and roll that into a fix and flips and roll that into rental properties and lease options. I do all that stuff myself. I think a lot of times people think, especially if you're already doing deals, a lot of times people forget they get really good at wholesaling and they only do that. Or they get really good at fix and flips and they only do that. Or they get to the point where they say, hey, I've been in real estate a couple of years. I've done, 20 deals, whatever it is. I don't need to wholesale anymore. I can tell you right now, I've never stopped wholesaling. Wholesaling is that one technique that you create money out of thin air. So I'm going to go through this, all of this foundational fundamentals course, and then review it, and then we'll jump into the first segment. So I'm going to be touching on all of these things as we go through this today. Keep in mind, as soon as we actually get into each segment, we're going to go really deep with a lot of amazing information and new stuff. So anyway, let's jump back into it. So first of all, wholesaling. As a general overview, wholesaling is you found a buyer, you found somebody that's active in real estate, that has cash, that wants properties. Okay, believe it or not, it doesn't matter where you live; those people are all over the place. We're in a strong market. We've got a lot of buyers out there that are hungry for properties. So you find buyers that want real estate deals, killer deals, low discounted deals, okay? And then you go out and find those deals, and then you match those two up legally with contracts. You match them up and you get paid. That's the general overview of the basic concepts. You're not bringing cash to the table. You're not going to your bank account and wiring money to a closing and closing on that property. We're going to go through in a second here the actual assignment of contract and double close process. You're going to get really good at finding buyers that are hungry for deals, and you're going to get really good, exceptionally good at finding deals nobody else can find that are just very discounted deals. Matching those two up and getting paid. All right, so I'm going to go over to the board real quick. I'm going to write out an assignment of contract so you can see the actual step-by-step process of this. So when we actually wholesale a deal, there's two main techniques that we use to sell those properties. We use an assignment of contract, and we use what's called a double close. I'm going to go through each one so you can really get a feel for what each one is. Okay, so on an assignment of contract, again, an assignment of contract, you're putting the house under contract and you're assigning that contract. You never close, okay? This is a one-page agreement. Once we get into wholesaling, in the wholesaling segment, I'm going to go really, really deep. I'm trying to give you guys an overview here in this foundational fundamental course. So I'm going to, if you say, hey, wait a minute, I've never seen an assignment of contract, don't worry, we're going to cover all that stuff. This is to give you an overview of what's going to happen when you get a killer deal and you find a buyer. So let's say we'll use an ABC method here. Okay, so you've got a seller over here, a motivated seller. That's A. That's somebody that has a property they really have to sell. It's not like they want to sell. They have to sell. Okay? You're in the middle. And then over here on the other side is a cash buyer. Okay? So you've got your motivated seller. You've got a motivated buyer. You're going to match these up. Okay? So you are going to learn how to find killer deals. Once you get, you found this deal, you've made an offer, that offer gets accepted, okay? How do you make an offer? Well, we're going to teach you guys how to make some verbal offers or some offers through email, but the way to lock up that deal, once you've made that verbal offer and the buyer or the seller says, yes, I'll take your offer, then you got to put that in writing so that you can lock it up legally. And the way you're going to do that is through what's called a purchase agreement. Okay, that's just a legal contract. We're going to go through that. Don't stress out. We've got a video that explains how to fill all that out. Okay, so you've got this purchase agreement. You made an offer. This purchase agreement has all the details in it. For example, we need 14 days. That's what we use. We need 14 days. Once you put it under contract, we want 14 days in order to find a buyer that'll buy that deal. That 14 days allows us to back out if we can't find a buyer, we can't close that deal, and you lose nothing, okay? So in this purchase agreement, we'll have a 14-day inspection, okay? The other thing is this purchase agreement has to be legally bound. And the way that you legally bind a contract is you have to have earnest money, okay? And we're going to get into that a little bit deeper, but just to let you guys know, when I find a seller that's a private seller, they don't have a real estate agent involved, I always do $1 earnest money. I haven't done over $1 earnest money on a unlisted for sale by owner type property in so many years I can't remember. It's over 5-6 years now. It's been that long. I'll teach us little techniques when we get into the wholesaling segment on how I get that done. If the house is listed with a real estate agent and you are going to be making offers on houses that are with a real estate agent, that's a little bit trickier. It takes a little bit more money. I usually will do $250 to $500 to maybe $1,000. It really depends on the deal. So in this example, we're just going to say, hey, we've got a $1 earnest money. Okay? We've got a 14-day inspection, and that deal has to close in 30 days. Okay, so if you've got it in your contract, this is all put in your purchase agreement. So it says right in there you've got 14 days to inspect the property. You're using that inspection period to find your buyer. If you don't find your buyer, you back out. You really don't have much at risk in this case anyway, because if, for example, you don't listen to me and you go over your 14-day inspection and you back out on day 15 or beyond, your only liability here is whatever you have for your earnest money. So if it's $1, you're not going to sweat that. If it's $1,000, well, that's a little more uncomfortable. So you want to keep this earnest money as low as you possibly can. Okay, so we've got it under contract. Now you've gone out and you found a buyer. Okay, so you found this buyer. Now, how do you transfer your equity in this deal? Because remember, we just got a killer deal. Maybe this house was worth, after repaired value, and I'm going to teach you guys all of these these terms and what all this stuff means and how to do all this stuff as we go along. So don't get overwhelmed. But let's say that this house, if it was in perfect move-in condition, it was worth $100,000. You got this house under contract for $50,000. Okay, so you got a half-price deal. Is that realistic? Absolutely. And I use $100,000 as an example. If you're in Southern California, that might be $500,000. I'm just using this as an example so you guys get a feel for how discounted a deal you can get. So you've got it under contract. You found a buyer. You put it under contract for $50,000. Okay. Now you want to assign your contract to a buyer, and you want to make a profit. Okay. So what do you need to transfer that equity over to the cash buyer? It's called an assignment of contract. Okay, it's just like the name says, assignment of contract. Not a very complicated piece of paperwork. It's one page. Actually, it's smaller than one page. Very easy to fill out. So your buyer says, you basically have this under for $50,000, but you marketed it to your buyer's list, and I'm going to be teaching you how to build that for $60,000. And you had this buyer here. He said, yes, I'll take it for $60,000. So what you've done here is you've got $50,000, you've created a $10,000 assignment fee. That assignment fee goes right into this contract, and I'll get into more details when we talk wholesaling as far as how I transfer this deal, how I marketed it, how I talk to the buyers. We'll get into that in a little bit. But for now, you've got a purchase agreement, you've got an assignment of contract, you're going to make a $10,000 profit. There's two ways to get paid. You can get paid up front. There's almost three ways to get paid. You can get paid up front, 100% of it. So you sign this agreement, buyer gives you a check for $10,000, you're paid. This is how fast an assignment of contract can work. You can go out, start marketing, get a killer deal under contract, and in a few days have a check for $10,000, $5,000, whatever. It really depends on how good of a deal you get. So that's one way to get paid. $10,000, get paid up front. The other way is to get paid at closing. Now that's a little bit riskier because what if that buyer flakes out and doesn't close? That's why I like getting paid up front. And the third way to get paid would be actually get paid partial up front and partial at closing. Sometimes new cash buyers, they don't want to pay you everything up front. They want to maybe give you a little bit up front and then pay you the rest at closing. Either way, that works. We want to avoid the not getting paid anything up front because it's too easy for those buyers to flake. We need to get all or a big portion up front. In this particular case, I might negotiate $5,000 up front if I couldn't get all $10,000 of it. So then this thing goes to closing. You'll notice that you had 30 days in the contract. What you're doing when you assign a contract is this buyer is buying your contract. So in this particular case, he's paying $10,000 for that contract. Now, is this a good deal? This is a great deal. Think about this. You're making $10,000, okay, for an assignment fee. The buyer's getting a house for $10,000 plus $50,000, so $60,000 that's worth $100,000. He's winning too. He's got equity. And the seller was able to sell a house that they didn't know that they could sell, okay? Because they weren't even marketing. You found them in this particular case. You can also assign contracts that are on MLS as well. So anyway, that's the broad overview of how an assignment of contract works. It's one of my favorite techniques. Because you're not closing, you don't have any closing costs. What your profit is really whatever you assign this property for. So anyway, that's assignment of contract. Now let's talk really quick about the double close. Let's go through that really quick. Let me back up to real quick why the circumstances that we use the assignment of contract. So on an assignment, one reason I use an assignment versus a double close, because you might be thinking, well, which one do I use? Well, one, on assignment, it can't be a foreclosure. So you can't really assign a foreclosure. So no foreclosures. The other thing too is if I'm going to make over $10,000, then I'll double close it. So if I'm making $10,000 or less, the reason why that is because the buyer, your cash buyer, sees your profit. So I try to do, $10,000 or less. The reason that is because sometimes when you're making a really big profit, the buyers start to complain and tend to give you a hard time or try not to do the deal because they see what your profit is. So those are some of those are the reasons why I would use an assignment of contract. It's the fastest, best way to sign or to move a deal with paying no closing costs. Now, on a double close, first of all, where would we use a double close? A double close, some people call them double escrow. So most of the time, most areas in the country call it double close. So where would we use a double close? Where instead of an assignment of contract, one is if you're trying to hide your profit. Again, if you're going to make, $15,000, $20,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 in some cases, which is possible, then you would want to double close in order to hide your profit. The other thing too is if the property is a foreclosure or an REO, sometimes is called. If it's a foreclosure, you have to double close. Banks who own these bank-owned properties, when they see that contract come through that's made assignable, they will a lot of times reject your offer. So these are the two reasons we would use a double close. Now let's talk about what a double close looks like. Again, this is you, and you're the middleman. Here's the seller. Here's the cash buyer. Again, notice that in each one of these cases, I noted that this isn't just a regular buyer. Whether it's a double close or an assignment of contract, this is a cash buyer. The reason that's important is if somebody tries to, you're looking for somebody that's going to pay cash. They're not getting a loan to buy this. They have to be able to close fast. No appraisals, no banks involved. It's a cash buyer only. So make sure if you're marketing your deal and somebody calls you and they want to move into this property and themselves and live there and go to get an FHA loan or some kind of a bank loan, that doesn't work. It has to be a cash buyer. So in this particular case, you've done a good job. You've marketed. You've got your cash buyers list, and you found an amazing deal that nobody knew about. And in this particular case, let's say this house was worth $100,000, and you got it for $30,000. Okay, so you got it really cheap. So you've made all these offers, and you get it under contract. Now, pretty much same steps. You've got to put it under contract. You've got a purchase agreement. Okay? That purchase agreement, to be legally bound, again, needs an earnest money. Let's just call it $1 again. And, in this contract, you've got a 14-day inspection. You're going to close in 30 days. Okay? The first half is still the same. Now, because this is going to be a bigger profit, because you've got such a big spread here, let's say you're going to try to make $20,000. So we want to double close it to hide your profit. So how do you move your deal over to this cash buyer? Well, you need another. It's not an assignment of contract anymore. Now it's another purchase agreement. Okay. Again, this purchase agreement, it needs to close at the same day as this purchase agreement. So if this purchase agreement says, just to throw out a date, if it says, hey, this must close by October 30th, then this one must close the same day. Now, they're going to need an earnest money check here to lock up this deal with you. Again, We know we're going to try to make a $20,000 profit after expenses in this case. So, we want to get a big chunk up front, again, to make sure the buyer doesn't flake. So we're going to tell these guys they have to put $5,000 down. I like to use that number. $5,000 keeps everybody motivated to make sure that they close. So it'll have the same, it's going to have the same finish. Whatever date it's supposed to close, this contract's going to read the same amount. Now, how many days inspection do they get? Again, we don't give them any days inspection. They have to go look at the property first. The same with the assignment of contract. They don't get it. They got 0 days inspection. They have to go look at the property first, commit to it, and then they're ready to close as soon as it can close. Now, so let's say we've got this under contract for $30,000. And we're going to make a $20,000 gross profit. So this particular contract says $50,000. Okay. Well, is this a good deal for these guys too? Yeah, because we've put it in for 30. He's still getting it at a 50% discount. It's good for the seller. They're able to unload a property they didn't think they could, and it's good for you. You're going to make a nice profit. So how is this going to end? So then now it closes. This isn't going to be as fast as a assignment in general because now you've got actual purchase agreement. You're actually going to close and then close again. So you're double closing. That's where we get the name. You're going to close on this deal. So how's this going to end up looking the day it closes? Well, we've got a $100,000 house. Okay. Now you bought it for 30. So you bought it for 30,000. And you're selling it for 50. Okay? So what that means is since you're closing once and you're closing again, you have to pay closing costs. A real easy way to figure closing cost is use about, it's never going to be this high. I use 3% of the sale. Usually it's a lot less than that, but that'll keep you safe. So like 3% of $30,000 is about $900. So you bought it for 30, you're selling it for 50, your gross profit is 20,000, okay? Minus $900 on the first closing cost. Oops. $900 for the first closing cost. Now, then you closed on it again here when you sold it. So now you have to pay closing costs on the $50,000. That's going to be $1,500 for the second closing cost. So what's your profit? Well, you got 20,000 minus 900 minus 1,500. So what's that come out to? 17,600, I think, if I did my math right there. So you made a profit of 17,600. Is that it? That's a pretty good day. We like those profits. Those will keep you happy, keep you moving along the way. So anyway, that's the gist of a double close. Again, we'll get into this deeper when we actually go through the wholesaling segment. But that's the gist of double closing and assignment of contract. Okay, so we're back. We just got done going over the overview of wholesaling. I'm going to talk about fix and flip next. So the big overview of fix and flip, if you're brand new, I mean, all of you guys have probably seen the, flip this house shows, and you kind of got a general idea. But I want to bring it back down to true reality and kind of go over an overview of what it is. So, in wholesaling, we just found a deal, found a buyer, matched them up. We made a smaller profit, and we were on our way. It didn't really take any money. It was literally a no money down type transaction. Fix and flip is a little different. So if your average wholesale fee is, let's say, $3,000 to $5,000 to $8,000 on average, and of course you can make more than that. In fix and flip, it's usually going to be a little bit higher. So most of the time, an average fix and flip profit would be $15,000 to $20,000. So really, what are we doing with fix and flip? Well, we don't have to find that end buyer like we did in the wholesaling, but we did need to find that killer deal. So one thing you'll notice as we go through all of these segments is that finding a deal at a massive discount is going to be the common denominator of every technique we use. We always want to get a good deal. If you get really, really good and focus your time and effort on finding killer deals, you can make about any of these strategies work. So if I could pick, one skill, if I only had a choice of one skill, my skill set would be in finding killer deals. So in a fix and flip, we found a killer deal. Now we're actually going to close on that. That's going to take real money. Whether you get a bank loan, whether you get private money, whether you use a line of credit, however it is that you fund that deal, you're actually, going hard with actual real money. So, in a wholesale deal and you got $1 earnest money, you didn't really have any risk. That dollar was your only risk. If you put out $1,000 earnest money, you'd have $1,000 at risk. In fix and flip, there's a lot more risk, but there's also a bigger reward potentially. So, if that house cost you $30,000, $50,000, who knows, $200,000, then that's your risk. You really have to be on your game to make this work. The other thing is, because there is real money involved, if you do borrow private money in order to buy that fix and flip or a bank loan or whatever, even a line of credit, your time is running against you now, because now you're paying interest on that money. So the speed in which you close a fix and flip is extremely important. So you've bought this property, and let's say, I'm going to go back over to the board. Let's just say that you've bought this property, and I'm going to use easy numbers, okay? Let's say that this house is a $100,000 house, okay? This is what the ARV is, the after repaired value. Basically, when I say ARV, it means after repaired value. Another way to figure that is just it means it's in perfect move-in condition, okay? So it's worth $100,000, and you've gotten a killer deal. And let's say that you picked up this house for $35,000. Okay, that's what your purchase price is. Your purchase. Okay. So that's great, right? But we still have a lot more information that we need in order to figure this stuff out. So, what else do we have to figure? We have to figure out, how much is it going to cost to repair? So let's say, for example, in this case, it's going to cost us $20,000 in repair costs. Now, I'm actually going to teach you guys in one of the segments. I'm going to actually teach you how to fix repair costs, so you'll have a really good idea on how to do it. We're going to talk about actual scope of work on a project. So don't stress out right now. This is just an overview of what fix and flip is. So you've got your purchase price, you've got your repair costs. We know what the ARV is, and I'm going to teach you how to do that in another segment with figuring comps. But the other thing is we have to figure out how much profit we're trying to make. Okay? I always tell everybody, if you figure your profit is an expense, literally count it as an expense in that deal, then you're much more likely to make that amount of profit. So let's say, for example, our goal is to make $20,000 profit. So again, we like to put that as an expense. So what about, so we've got the purchase price, we've got the repair costs, we know what our profit we're trying to shoot for is. What about other costs? Well, we've got holding costs, we've got any of the closing costs that we had on buying it, and we've got closing costs on selling it. If you borrowed money, you're going to have what it's going to cost to borrow that money. So, we have to figure out what that holding cost, or the borrowed money, what is that going to cost us if you've borrowed money? We've got our closing costs. Okay. Well, we know that closing costs, right, as I talked about in wholesaling, our closing costs are about 3%, but we've got to close this twice. So if you're going to resell this property, because this is what we're trying to sell it for up here, is this after repaired value. If you're going to sell it for that, we've got those closing costs. So if you bought it in 3% of closing cost on $3,500, let's say that's about $1,000, and if 3% of $100,000 is $3,000, I mean, we've got about $4,000 in closing costs. Okay? And then you've got your holding cost. If you own this house, you're going to have to, if it's the summertime, you're going to have to cut the lawn. If you've got, if it's the wintertime, you're going to have to make sure that you got snow removal going. You've got property taxes you're paying. You've got utility bills you're paying. Again, if you've got the borrowed money, that kind of rolls into that holding cost as well. So don't forget your holding cost. I'm going to roll this into an easy formula, but you've got those holding costs, and we're going to talk deeper into that. But these are all the things I want you to know about when you're talking about buying a house, fixing it up, and reselling it. It's a lot of times, especially I always refer back to the flipping house shows. They don't talk about any of this stuff. You'll never hear them talk about, well, we had $4,000 holding costs or closing. They don't talk about closing costs. They're always using gross numbers, and it seems like they make a lot more profit than what they do. What you've got to get really good at is getting this house really cheap and figuring out how to get these repairs done fast and for the right price. The other thing with a fix and flip is you've got to be able to know what exactly to repair. If you've got a house and every house in the neighborhood has granite countertops, you've got to put granite countertops in to be like the other houses. If you've got this house in this particular neighborhood is more of a starter home neighborhood, and all the houses have Formica countertops and carpet versus tile, or there's no tile backsplashes, they're not upgraded with a lot of upgraded type of materials, then you don't want to over-improve. If you over-improve the house, then you won't make, first of all, you'll spend all this extra money, but you won't be able to sell it for more. Because regardless of what you see on TV, just because you add granite countertops in an area that doesn't really warrant it because no other houses, it's still gonna appraise for about what all the other houses are selling for. So that's the one thing I want to make sure that everybody realizes when we're talking fix and flip is you can't over improve. There's things that, and we're going to get into that really deep when we talk actual fix and flip. But the main concept I'm trying to teach you guys right now is there's real money invested in a fix and flip. Yes, you can make bigger profits. I like to say, $20,000 profits plus, depending on the actual value of the property. If you're in, a small town in the Midwest, $100,000 profit, or a $100,000 house would, a $20,000 profit would be good. You can kind of focus on a 20% profit. So if you're in a neighborhood that's $500,000 houses and that's what your ARV is, obviously a $20,000 profit on a $500,000 investment is not that exciting. So we try to shoot for 20% on our money so that type of return is actually something that we can shoot for. So the main concept is you've got real money, you've got real risk. But what happens is this. What I like to teach everybody is you start with wholesaling, and you start wholesaling houses, and you're making these $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 profits on average. And you can do a lot of wholesale deals per month if you crank up your marketing and you find good buyers, because you're not restricted by cash, because it doesn't take cash to wholesale. So what's going to happen is you're going to be wholesaling houses, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 profits. You're going to build up your cash reserves to say, maybe $100,000 or $200,000, and then you're going to say, hey, I want to, this house, I could wholesale this fix and flip and sell it to somebody else that takes all the risk and make $5,000, but I want to make this $20,000 profit. So then you take your 100,000, 200,000 that you've built up, and you roll it into a bigger deal and make a little bit more money, because now you have that cash to invest. You'll see throughout this program, I'm basically teaching how to parlay your profits into bigger and more exciting things. That doesn't mean that you stop doing wholesales. That's just the opposite. Keep doing those wholesales. Those wholesale deals keep your cash flow, that monthly cash flow coming in, so that you can cover other things that you need to cover. Like maybe you're eventually going to leave your job and you want that income to live off of. This is just something that you'll naturally roll into once you start doing a lot more deals and you've got a lot of wholesale money coming in, and you spot a deal that you say, hey, I could wholesale this and make $5,000, but instead I'm going to go ahead and fix it up and actually flip it. So bigger paydays than wholesaling, but there's risk. So I just wanted to give you an overview. We'll actually get into, when I talk fix and flips, I'm going to actually go over the actual formula that you use to decide whether you say, hey, I can flip this one and make a profit, or no, after all the expenses, there's no profit to be had. We're going to go through all those details. So now that's the overview of fixing and flipping. We're going to take a break and we'll come back and do rental properties. Okay, so welcome back. We just talked about wholesaling. We talked about fix and flip. We gave you the overview of both. Now we're going to talk about rental property. So, again, we naturally start with wholesaling, especially if you don't have a lot of money to invest or zero money to invest. You can wholesale. It doesn't take a lot of risk. It doesn't take really much cash, earnest money deposit, whatever that is. We build that up. We're wholesaling. We're doing a lot of deals. You build up your cash reserves. You roll that into some fix and flips, and you make some bigger paydays. Okay, that's one way to multiply your income. But now let's say you want to build wealth. So wholesaling and fix and flips build income, okay? It doesn't build wealth. Wealth is actually something that you create through cash flow and through equity. When you sell a fix and flip, you're basically selling off your equity. Now you're putting that money in the bank. When we talk wealth, we're really talking about cash flow, okay? So that's one thing that most people want to eventually do, is roll their profits into some rental properties for long-term, like a retirement or a cash flow type program, where they can eventually say, hey, I don't want to do any more fix and flips. I don't want to do any more wholesaling. I just want to let my rental properties pay me every month. And, that's great. That's something that I do as well. And I've built up quite a few properties just with single-family homes and just using them as rentals. So let's go back over to the board and let's talk more about rental property. So first of all, again, just like in the other, whether you're wholesaling or you're doing a fix and flip, we still want a killer deal. We still want to get a good deal on a property. We're trying to build. The lower the price that you pay for that property, it gives you more room for mistakes, or it gives you more room for if you go over budget on rehab, or if you overestimate what you think you can get for rent. It's just a good way to safeguard your investment. So we're still looking for a killer deal. The difference is on a rental property, we're not reselling the property, at least not today. Maybe we're going to resell it with an exit strategy down the road. That could be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It could be never. You might say, hey, I want to take these rental properties, I'm going to build up a whole bunch of them, and I'm eventually just going to pass these on to my kids or whatever it is. So you don't have to sell. My plan is I always sell off a few of my rentals over time, but my strategy is I want to keep a whole bunch of properties. My whole thing is I want to get these properties to the point where, if I put bank financing against them, and let's say that I'm, putting these loans in for 15-year amortization. And if I use any terms that go a little bit over your head, I'm going to dive into that deeper, so don't stress out on that. But if I buy a rental property and I have a loan on it that lasts for 15 years, what that's saying is after 15 years, that property is going to be paid off. So my personal goal is I want to buy all these rental properties. I want to pay all the mortgages off over time. And then eventually I own a bunch of properties free and clear that just collects a lot more cash flow. And you can basically go to bed every night and wake up in the morning and you don't have any stress on anything because the cash flow is so high at that point. That's one of the greatest things about rental properties. So we love the rental properties create the cash flow. that we're looking for. The other reason why rental properties are good, and consult your accountant for any of this information, but I like rental properties because they create a tax shelter. So one thing that happens is when you wholesale a property or you do a fix and flip, you're going to create that's a consequence that gets taxed, okay? You get taxed when you sell. Okay, that's just the government's way of getting paid. So if you wholesale a deal, you're going to get taxed. If you flip a house, you're going to get taxed. What rental properties do, though, the government allows us to actually create a tax shelter. So what they say is they've basically said is hey, the government as a whole, we're not very good at creating low affordable housing for people. So what we'll do for all those investors out there, if they are good at creating rental properties for people, then we'll give you a tax benefit. And I'm not going to get into all the details here, but one big thing about owning rental properties is you can shelter some of your tax consequences. So for example, what I do is I own all these rental properties. That way, when I wholesale a property and I make $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is, or if I fix and flip a property and I make $20,000 and I get hit with taxes, well, my rentals shelter some of that tax consequence, so I don't get taxed as heavily. So I can keep more of that money in my pocket, on top of having my cash flow. So that, every month, I always joke around and say, hey, the first of the month always comes back around, and those rent checks come back in, and that cash flow is created. So we like the cash flow. We want the tax shelter. And again, eventually, you get to keep the equity. And that equity, generally, not always, not guaranteed, but that equity goes up. So if you bought this house and it's got $50,000 equity in it after you've rehabbed it and it's got a tenant in it now, well, over time, what's the likelihood that house is going to go up in value? Real estate, always has ups and downs, but generally speaking, these ups and downs are always followed on an upward trend. So over time, this could be a 20-year period, or maybe 30, 40 years, however long, the market, historically speaking, always moves up over time, even though it has dips in it. So you get to keep that equity, and then over time, those properties go up. So let's say, for example, today your house is worth $100,000. So you've got this rental property; it's worth $100,000, and in 20 years from now, that house could easily be worth $200,000. So I love that part about rental properties. I love the fact that every single day, on average, my wealth increases. If I decide to sell it in 20 years and I put a 20-year loan on it, and I'm going to get more into banking later, then what's happened is I've got it. It's worth $100 today, even if I'm all in for $50. It's worth $100. 20 years from now, it's worth $200, and the loan's paid off. So I got a mortgage against it, but that loan paid off, which was paid off by the tenant through rent checks every month, and now 20 years later, it's worth $200,000. And guess what? This cash flow always goes up too. If you look over time, this could be values, and this could also be rents. Right now, your property, just to give you an easy example, let's say it's rented out for $1,000 a month. Well, it's likely that in 20 years, 25, 30 years maybe, that rent could now be $2,000 a month. So 20 years from now, imagine this. You've got this rental property. It's paying you, let's say after all expenses, and we'll get into the details later on how to figure cash flow. Let's say after all expenses, it's bringing in $200 a month. Well, 20 years from now, you've paid off the mortgage, and the rent has doubled. What's your cash flow now? Well, if you take your rent minus your taxes, insurance, mortgage, maintenance, and property management, you could have $1,200 a month on that same property that you had $200 a month after expenses 20 years earlier. I've noticed this in my business. I've been in real estate now for 10 years, and I can remember 10 years ago, having some of the houses I had rented out for $550, $600 a month. Those same houses 10 years later are now rented for $850 to $900 a month. I mean, the gain has been really significant. But guess what? My mortgage payment didn't go up during that time. The value of the property has gone up, but my mortgage payment, that's set. That's set in stone. Taxes went up maybe a little bit, nowhere near as much as the rent. Insurance really didn't go up. In fact, I've gotten better rates over time. So most of your expenses don't go up, but your cash flow does through just increasing rents. So I always figure in most of the areas I invest that my value each month, so the value of the property and the rents, they go up 3% per year. Okay? So that's pretty exciting stuff when you figure that if you can build up to 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 rental properties, whatever it is, that is going up. If you build up to enough rental properties, that 3% move can be pretty significant. So, you get higher cash flow every year. You get higher values. If you do decide to sell, you've got a bigger payday because you held that property, now the value is a lot higher. So I think most of the people that get into real estate, their goal is eventually to own more rental properties or own rental properties. And the best way to do it is taking your wholesale profits, roll those into fix and flips, roll those fix and flips into rental properties, leverage those rental properties with bank loans, and then leverage your money and grow your wealth and grow your cash flow. Again, we'll get into how to figure expenses and get into all those details. But for now, I just wanted to give you a big overview. So anyway, that's rental properties. We're going to be talking about lease options next. Okay, so now I want to talk about lease options. Now, I love lease options. Lease options is a hybrid of a rental property and almost like a flip type of a deal because there's a bigger payday. It's not as big as a fix and flip, but it's a nice payday up front. Plus, you still get to retain all the cash flow. There's still going to be a chance that the way that a lease option works is there's two, and I'm going to be teaching you guys two different lease option styles. But when you own the property and you want to lease it out to somebody with the option to buy. So what usually happens is they buy it from you over time. That's what a lease option is. The reason I love them is because there's two things about a lease option that eliminates all risk from rentals. And here's what it is. So in most rental properties, with a rental, your risks are one, vacancy. Okay? If that rental property goes vacant, you make no money. Okay? It's a liability at that point. So vacancy is eliminated because you've got this person in that property for a long period of time. These people could be in the property 3 to 5 years, maybe longer, and then cash you out or leave at that point. Who knows what could happen, as we'll talk about it. But vacancy is eliminated. A lot of times rental properties, somebody moves in and they live at that property maybe 1 or 2 years and then they move out. They go buy a house or they move out, move away, or whatever it is. I've got tenants that's lived in my rental properties for 8 years, but the average person, I'd say, on average, lasts about 2 years. So then that property goes vacant until you release it again. We're going to talk about how to lease really fast so that your vacancy is minimized. But the nice thing about a lease option is when you own the property and you're leasing it to somebody else, that vacancy is minimized. The other thing that's eliminated is maintenance. Okay? So the way lease options work is whoever's, that lease option, they're buying that house on a lease with option to buy. They're the purchaser. It's their home versus their rental property. They have the mindset that they want to take really good care of this property and they don't want any delayed maintenance. And if there's something that comes up, they fix it. It doesn't cost you anything. So, I've had lease option tenants put new roofs or put new siding on a house, build fences, put new doors and windows in, any of that stuff. So the maintenance on a rental property, if you've got a tenant that's just a really high maintenance tenant, literally their maintenance could be really high. If they call and they're constantly calling you and, hey, I want this fixed and that fixed and this fixed and that fixed. Yeah, I'm going to teach you how to help curb some of that. But, if the maintenance is starting to run up really high, that can really hurt your return in a rental property. Well, the nice thing about a lease option is they pay for all that maintenance. So your cash flow is set in stone. That's the best part. So you've got cash flow that's set in stone, that's consistent. Okay? So I love that part about it. But another part is that down with a lease with option to buy is what happens is they give you a down payment. Basically what it's called is it's option consideration. That's the technical term, but it's a down payment. So I love these down payments. Now, how much is the down payment? On average, they're 3 to 5%. Now, I've had lease option buyers give me 40% down. Why he didn't go through a bank loan, I have no idea, but I'm not going to turn away 40% down payment. What's the chances that deal's going to go bad? It's almost zero. So they give you a down payment. So 3 to 5%. So on a $100,000 house, they might give you, $3,000 to $5,000 down. Now, think about that. You've got this cash flow coming in every single month now. This tenant's moved in. They're paying rent like clockwork because they're buying it. And you've got this little $3,000 to $5,000 payday. What if you could do 1 or 2 of these a month? Well, then you're creating this $3,000 to $5,000 payday every single month. Plus you're adding in the cash flow from, the more lease options you buy. Why is this good for them? Why is the person that's buying this property from you good? Why is this a good deal? Well, think about it. They're they're gaining equity. If that property goes up in value $20,000 over a 3-year period, they get to keep that equity growth. If they get to make modifications and decorate paint-wise and do additions or change walls or whatever it is that they want to do out of their own pocket, upgrades to that house they can do. It's their home. So they love that. With a rental property, most rental agreements say you're not allowed to paint, you're not allowed to modify, you can't add a fence if you want. They can do all that. So it's their own home. So it's good for them because now they've built, they're building equity if that house goes up in value. But they get to do what they want with the house. So it's good for them. It's good for you because you're getting set cash flow and you're getting this down payment. So, what if this? So let's say for example, you bought a property and it's worth $100,000 and you lease optioned it. Okay? And let's say you did one of these every single month. But your all in was $80,000. Okay? So you bought the house, you fixed it up, and you lease optioned it for $100,000, but you're all in for $80,000. So you created a $20,000 potential profit. Okay, and I say potential because if that person cashes you out, you'll realize and get that $20,000. In the meantime, if you have a $200 a month cash flow after all expenses, let's say you've got a mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and a management fee, and then you've got $200 a month, then there's your cash flow, $200 per month. Now, let's say you got aggressive and you did one of these, and let's just say, on average, the average one of these things cashes out. If the person does cash you out, I usually do 3-year deals, okay? So let's say you got really aggressive and you did one lease option every single month for 2 years, let's say, okay? And let's just say that every one of these people cashed you out, okay? Now that's, from my experience, not everybody's going to cash you out. The actual rate of people cashing you out is less than 50%. In some parts of the country, it's higher or lower depending on where you're at. So let's say that every one of these deals you were able to create a $20,000 spread. So let's say after 2 years of these deals, you had $200 a month, and you had 24 of these deals. Okay, you did one per month for 2 years, so you had 24 houses in lease option. This is why it gets exciting. So you've got 24 times 200. So what is that? $4,800 a month. So you just created $4,800 per month in cash flow. Okay. Now let's fast forward to year number 3 when these things start cashing you out. So year number 3, let's say month 36 or 37. So month 37, you got this $20,000. So you made $20,000. Okay. Plus, keep in mind you've made all this cash flow. So you just cash that out. Month 38, another $20,000. Month 39, another $20,000. Month 40, another $20,000. Do you see how you've created now not only monthly cash flow from the actual rents coming in, but you've created cash flow from people starting to sell. I'm going to teach you how to raise the percentage of people that actually cash you out by connecting them with literally a credit counselor. That's one of the keys, is getting a mortgage broker to them and a credit counselor, starting fixing their credit. You always hear a lot of stories of these rent to own, lease option. Another way to call a lease option is a rent to own. You'll see them as rent to own or RTO. It's the same exact thing. And you'll hear a lot of stories where some of these owners will try to do everything they can to get that tenant to mess up so they can take the house back. We don't do that. I want that. I want this $20,000 payday. I want this person to cash me out. So I teach these people how to improve their credit and how to get a mortgage so that they actually cash me out, because I want these paydays. So imagine this whole year, for the entire year, you had a $20,000 payday every single month. You just made almost $250,000 off of in 1 year just in the payouts, not counting the cash flow that you made. Now, obviously, this cash flow goes down every time you sell one of those houses. You lose that $200 cash flow. But you can see how exciting this can be. You can get it to the point where you're not only collecting monthly rent cash flow, but you also have that big payday. Now, what if you got really aggressive and had 2 of them going every month, and you did 2 lease options every month, or 3 or 4? You can see how all of a sudden, if you had 5 people cash you out of a lease option in 1 month, that's $100,000 if you're making $20,000 a piece. This gets really exciting. This is why I love lease options. I love the fact that I'm not going to get any maintenance calls. I love the fact that I'm going to get that cash flow. And I love the fact that I've got this down payment that I'm going to get up front. And I love the fact that when they cash me out, I get paid again. This is a win-win-win. It's a win for the person that's lease optioning from you, and it's definitely a win on your end too. But also, as an investor, there's another way to look at this. What if you wanted to buy the house on a lease option? So let's talk about that. So we just explained what if you were the one that owned the house and were lease optioning it somebody else. But lease option is also a technique you can do to buy a property. Okay? What if you want to, basically you don't have a lot of money to buy a house, and you can't, you don't have a hard money set up or a private money set up or bank financing. Let's say your credit's bad, whatever it is, and you've wholesaled and you've made some money wholesaling, but now you want to buy the rental, get that cash flow coming in without actually buying a rental property. You could lease option. You find a motivated seller that really wants to sell, and you go in there and take over their payments. I'll get into more details when we get into that segment, but now you're buying the property. So let's say it's worth $100,000, and you negotiate it down to $60,000, and you tell the buyer or the seller that you want to buy it on a rent to own. You could buy this at $60,000, And let's say you've done a few wholesale deals, you've got a little bit of money, and you decide to do the rehab. Let's say the rehab you can get done for $10,000. Now you could rent out that property. You're all in for $100,000, or you're all in for $70,000. It's worth $100,000, and you're literally now renting. You're lease optioning it from the seller. Now you're renting out that property, and you've got $30,000 in equity. And this was a way for you to get into the deal without putting any money down, because you don't have to. In a scenario where you're literally lease optioning it to somebody else, and you're the seller in that case, you want to get a big down payment. But every time I do a lease option from an actual seller, and I'm now the buyer of that lease option, I negotiate down no down payment and very, very low monthly rental payments. And if you find a motivated seller, you can do that. So I'm going to be getting into those details too. So I love lease options as a selling technique, but I also like them in certain circumstances as a buying technique where maybe the spread is a little bit tighter, but it still works as a lease option because I'm not putting any money out, other than in this case maybe some rehab money. So anyway, that's why I love lease options. I love the cash flow. I love the down payment. I love them cashing me out and getting a big payday. And then on a buyer side, I like being into the deal without putting any money down. So anyway, lease option is one of my favorite techniques. It's something that I'll always do. I try to do as many of them as I possibly can. I try to turn every rental property into a lease option. I'm going to teach you guys how I do that as well. So, we just covered, this foundational stuff we just covered, wholesaling, the overview of that, assignment of contract, double close. We talked fix and flip, a little more risk, but bigger paydays. We talked about rental properties and the cash flow and the equity growth, and we talked lease options and all of the benefits there. So we're going to come back. I'm going to jump into the next foundational course. So be back in a minute. Okay, everybody, let's jump back into it. I want to take a minute and talk about goal setting. If you're not goal setting with a lot of the things that you're doing in life, you're really missing out on a lot of potential. I've been setting goals for a long time, and I can remember before I ever used to set goals, I never accomplished anywhere near as much as since I actually started setting realistic goals. I do this stuff every single month, and I'm constantly setting goals, and I want to make sure that you guys do too. I'm actually going to give you an action step to take after we go through this. Again, this is an interactive course. My goal is to get you to take action and get you in movement so that you can get to your goals faster. So first thing about goal setting, we want to make sure that this goal that you're going to set, I'm going to have you guys set 30-day, 90-day, and 1-year goals. But going through the actual steps of this, I want to make sure that this goal is realistic. Now, if you're going through this program and you're already doing 5 deals a month, and those are wholesale deals, and you're making $3,000 to $5,000, you're generating a decent amount of income. You might be in a different place than somebody that's never done a deal. If you're brand new and you've never done a deal, your 30-day goal, if you go out and say right out of the gate, I'm going to do 20 deals my first month. I'm not saying that that's not possible. I'm just saying it's probably not realistic your first 30 days. But if you've already done 5, 10 deals a month, multiple months in a row, to set the goal of doing 20 deals a month, that's realistic. You could probably achieve that goal. So the main thing I want you to, when you're writing out your goals and you're thinking things through, just make sure it's realistic, okay? The next thing you need to do, this might be the most important piece, is you need to make it written. Now, I know in the age of smartphones and everybody can just go into their notes app on their smartphone and write down a goal. I don't really want you to do that. I want you to take out a yellow piece of paper and physically write your goals out. I did for years. I did it on a 3x5 card. I seem to do everything on yellow notebook paper now. But write out your goals and put them somewhere where you can see them every day. You need to keep that stuff in front of you. If you just write out your goals and stick it in a drawer and check back in a year, you'll probably find that you didn't accomplish that many of them. Keep them in front of you. It keeps you focused. It keeps your mind moving in that direction. But make sure it's written. Physically write it out with a pen and paper. The next thing that's important is you need to break your goals up into small pieces. And what I mean is some of you guys might say, man, I really would like to make, $100,000 but in real estate, but it just seems like it's just too big of a goal. Well, you don't have to make $100,000 on your first deal. Break it up over small deals over the course of a year. Get some momentum going. If I told you that, you wanted to make $100,000 in the course of a year, but you could do it in $3,000 deals, like wholesaling properties, it's a lot easier to make a $3,000 profit on a deal than it is to make $100,000. So just make sure you're breaking your goals up into small pieces. You don't have to, accomplish everything your first week in real estate. Just move a little bit closer to it every day. And the last thing is you need to have a timeline. Make sure that, you don't just say, hey, I want to make $100,000 in real estate. Give yourself a deadline in order to achieve it by. That's going to create a sense of urgency. It's going to make you get up every day and you're going to push forward and make that happen. Okay? So you know that day that you're supposed to accomplish that goal is looming in the future soon. So make sure they're realistic, make sure they're written, break them up in small pieces, and make sure you have a deadline in which to have that done. Now, knowing that, I want you guys to write out your 30-day goals, 90-day goal, and your 12-month goal. Okay? 30, 90, 12-month. Because one, I want you to look out far enough in the future that you know where you want to end up in a year. But I also want you to take action fast and make sure that if your goal is to do a deal in the first 30 days and you're brand new and you've never done a deal, this is totally realistic. This should be what your goal is. At the same time, I want you to get some momentum and don't quit after that first deal and keep rolling and keep it going. So most people overestimate what they can do in a 30 to 90 day time frame, and they totally underestimate what they can accomplish in 12 months to 24 months. The biggest thing is you've got to take steps every single day towards those goals. So what you've got? We've got a little document that goes with this. You'll see it online there, where you can print that off and actually fill out your goals. Make sure you do that. Okay, guys, it's time for an action step. Okay, so welcome back. So the next thing I want to cover is I want you to think business. And what I mean by that is a lot of times when you get into real estate, you're already working at a job. You may have never started your own business before. And when you go out and, wholesale deals or fix and flip houses or buy rental properties or do lease options, whatever it is, you're getting into business for yourself. So I want to make sure you're thinking business. You want to make sure you're thinking long term, that you're not just going to do a couple of deals and be in and out. You need to be thinking business. So I want you to think business setup. So one of the first things I want you to do is go out and create a Gmail account. It's free to do, but you want a separate email account for your business. And you don't have to get tricky with the names. Generally speaking, what I do is I set up a new LLC. You don't have to do that in the very beginning. When I first started, I set up an LLC after I did a couple of deals and made a little bit of money, and then put some money back in. But you're eventually probably going to do that, especially if you're going to hold rental properties. So, but you want a business email. So let's say, you name your business, whatever it is, Excellent Capital LLC. Maybe you make a Gmail account that says, Matt, or you use your name, Matt, Excellent Capital, at gmail.com. Whatever it is. Think of a name, incorporate into your Gmail account the name of your business just to make it more professional. And then put together a Gmail account. I like Gmail the best. It seems to be able to block out all the spam. You get a lot of memory. It's just easy, lots of options, lots of features, and it's just an email account that I've used for years. It's been really, really, really good. So anyway, what I want you to do, I've actually got a video I'm going to play that I want you guys to watch, follow through, and actually stop what you're doing at the end of the video, follow the steps, and create your Gmail account right now. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to create a Gmail account. First, go to gmail.com and select Create an Account. Then you're going to enter all of your personal information here and click the next step, which will bring you to your account, or sometimes you have to verify the mobile phone number that you give here. So I'm going to go ahead and enter some information. Okay, and then it's going to ask you a little bit of personal information here. I'm just going to type in some bogus information. This is not my real information or my real phone number that I'm going to put here. Okay. Now once you type in that information, go ahead and you're going to have to type the text below to prove that you're not a robot. If you can't see it very well, you can do what I did and click the next button. Okay, and then it's going to ask you to choose your location. If you're outside of the United States, click the down arrow and select your country. Otherwise, click Agree to the Google Terms of Service and Privacy Policy, and then click Next Step. Okay, so what it's doing here is asking me to verify my account. It usually doesn't do this, but if it does, it will send a text message or a voice call to the number that you provided. So we'll go ahead and select a verification code by text message, and then it's going to give you a text message with the code that you're going to type in here, and then you click Continue. All right, now we have our Gmail set up. You can go up here and go to your account. This is where you can look at any of your personal information. You can add your picture. You can go to your account preferences and set up your tools and activity settings, or you can just go back. If you click up here, you'll see that you have access now to YouTube, your Gmail account, Google Drive, the Google Calendar. So let's go back to your Gmail. All right, and if you need a tutorial, you can just go ahead and keep clicking Next, and it'll kind of guide you through Gmail and the features. Otherwise, you are good to go to start sending and receiving emails from this account. Here's your inbox. Anything that you put a star next to, you can check your sent mail here, your drafts, and then more. And that is how to set up a Gmail account.
Okay, so now that you've got a Gmail account put together, the next thing I want you to do is we're going to put together a Google Voice. Again, this Google Voice is free. You know, basically it's a phone number for your business that's a free number. And now that you've got a Gmail account, you can create this Google Voice number. Why you want your own separate number for your business. Another thing, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to do bandit signs. And one of the nice things about Google Voice is the number is not traceable. So if you call somebody, they can't necessarily figure out who you are. It's nice to be able to stay anonymous in any business, but I'm going to teach you more details why that's important a little bit later. But the big thing is I want you to be able to create a Google Voice account so you have one for your business. One nice feature about Google Voice, especially in the age of text messaging and everything else, is Google Voice. If you miss that call, and that call goes to voicemail, Google Voice will automatically set up and transcribe that voicemail. So you never have to listen to a voicemail. I haven't listened to a voicemail in years from my phone. I just basically you'll pull up the voicemail on your phone. You can read it as a text. You could respond back to that. You could push that voicemail to somebody else on your team that may need to hear it instead of you that can handle it. And I do that all the time. I'll forward a Google Voice message. Somebody can read it or listen to it, either one, and I'll just send it, whether it be to Amanda or whoever my assistant is, and just say, hey, listen to this voicemail and take care of it, and it gets handled. So that's a really nice feature. You want to save time, especially if you're still working your job and you're working that full time and you're doing real estate in the nights and weekends or whatever it is. The more time you can save, the better off you are. I mean, obviously everybody wants to fit as much in their day as they can. So what I want you to do, I've got another video on the step-to-step process on how to create a Google Voice. Watch the video and then press pause and go take the action step and set up your Google Voice number, and then come back. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to set up a Google Voice number. First, make sure that you're signed into your Gmail account. Next, you can go up to your search bar and type in google.com/voice. Then you'll see a Getting Started box. You'll need to review the terms and privacy policy and then accept those to proceed. The next step will be to set up your Google Voice number. To do this, you'll want to click I want a new number. Once you do that, this box will pop up and you'll add your forwarding phone. This is normally a cell phone that you want any calls from your Google Voice number to go to. So go ahead and enter your cell phone number here now, and if you click the drop-down menu, you can select mobile. Then hit continue. Once you do this, you'll see that there will be a box to reclaim or to establish a new phone number. It will give you a 2-digit number, and you can click Call Me Now. Once you click the Call Me Now button, your cell phone will ring, you will answer it, and type in the 2-digit code that it gives you. After you do that, it'll allow you to choose your number. So this is where you're going to enter in the zip code, area code, or city that you're looking to establish a Google Voice number. Normally we tell you, wherever you're doing real estate, you want to have a local number. So go ahead and enter the area code in which you're doing real estate business. And then you can click Search Numbers. As you can see, we have quite a few choices here. We also have different cities with the same area code. So we'll choose a number that best suits our area and click Continue. Not all cities will have available area codes, so you may need to search until you find some available phone numbers in your area. Now the next thing I want to do is go ahead and click Continue. And as you can see, it's adding my Google Voice number. So now I've successfully set up my Google Voice number. It gives me the number here. And now what I could do is download the app onto my phone with this phone number, and I'll start receiving calls directly to my phone. At the moment, all calls will go to my Gmail account where I can check it under Google Voice. And that's how to set up a Google Voice phone number.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Okay, so now you've got your Google Voice and your Gmail account set up. Now it's time to get into marketing. First of all, why is marketing so important? Well, we're trying to find killer deals. And when you find a deal, you have to have somebody to sell it to if you're doing a wholesale deal. And the second thing is when we find a deal, you want to find a deal that nobody else can find. You want to find a deal. If you've got a property that nobody else knows about and the seller is motivated to sell, what's the chances you can get it for a much discounted price? It's very, very high. So marketing is important because we need to find those people that have those killer deals for sale, and we need to find the buyers in order to, link those two up so that we can do wholesale deals. So marketing is one of the most important things that you guys will do. When I'm teaching new investors, I'm always focusing on marketing. And the foundation of your marketing is going to be through bandit signs. Okay, so let's say you're brand new. You've never even heard the word bandit sign before. What is it? Well, have you ever seen those little signs on the side of the road, the little yellow signs that, or in any case, all kinds of different color signs that always advertising something for sale, or we buy houses, or during the elections you'll see a lot of politicians. They're little yard signs that are sitting at busy intersections or off the side of the road that are offering something for sale or trying to promote something. Why do politicians litter the area with bandit signs? When there's an election, or why do you see those signs on the side of the road? The reason why is because they work. I always tell everybody, until you do, put out bandit signs, that's step number 1 in your marketing. You don't go to step number 2 unless you're already running bandit signs. It's absolutely foundational. 10 years later, I'm still buying houses with bandit signs, and it's so funny. Every time I sit down and talk to a veteran investor and I'm optimizing their business, one of the first questions I'm asking is if they're running bandit signs. And if they're not, I go back to rule number 1 and get them started on bandit signs. So, we're going to be talking first about buyers. So we're trying to locate buyers with bandit signs. That's one of our first foundational steps, okay? So, first of all, let's get into some of the details of what these bandit signs say, what they are, how big they are, what color they are. First of all, now this is for buyers. These bandit signs are 18 by 24 inches, okay? I've tested all kinds of different sizes, and what I found is this size is the right size where it's not too big of a size, but it's not too small where you can't really see it or pay attention to it. This is the perfect size. This is where I've gotten most of my phone calls. The second thing, these bandit signs they need to be yellow with black writing. Yellow catches your attention. There's a reason why there are a lot of traffic signs that are yellow. That catches your eye. The green ones, they blend in with, like, if there's grass, if it's white and it's snowing out, they'll blend in with snow. Those signs just don't catch your attentions like the yellow and black do. So we got 18 by 24. They're yellow signs. The writing on them needs to be handwritten. The reason why handwritten works, especially when you're buying or selling, because people think that you're a real person, okay? They think that, in the case of a buyer looking to buy a property, when I show you what we write on these, they think you're a real person down the street and this deal is totally legitimate. So for years I used to do printed signs, or not for years, for months I did printed signs, and I just didn't get the response. And really what I was thinking in my head is that somebody thought that, hey, I used to see those little signs on the side of the road, and they'd be pre-printed, and it'd be like, make $1,000 in 2 hours a day. And I always thought that was kind of fake. And I think when you print these signs, the same person's thinking if there's a house involved. So we do handwritten signs. The other thing is the writing needs to be written with a Magnum Sharpie. Basically the king size Sharpie. So, you want these people to be able to see this sign from as long a distance away as possible. You don't want to, you've got only a fraction of time. If it's in an intersection and there's a green light and they're not stopping at that point, you have to make it big enough where they can see it far enough back where they can, get the number before they drive by. So we like to make those letters as big as we possibly can. The Magnum Sharpie has the tip on it is probably like an inch wide. So make sure it's a Magnum Sharpie. The other thing is we want to get a local phone number. So that's already taken care of when you did your Google Voice. You got your local phone number. If you're doing virtual wholesaling and you want to try to wholesale outside of your town, you can get a Google Voice number outside the area, and the same thing will be accomplished. But make sure it's a local number. Again, I used to see those signs on the side of the road, and they'd have a make $1,000 in 2 hours a day, and it always had a 1-800 number, and I always thought that's not somebody that's local here, that's probably a scam. So I think the same thing happens when you're dealing with houses. So the main thing is let's just stick with exactly what I'm showing you here. We want to put out these signs in busy intersections. So make sure that you want as many eyeballs to see these signs as you can possibly see. So, if you put them in a residential area, only X amount of people are going to drive by. If they're in busy intersections, you're going to have 10 times as many eyeballs. That's 10 times as many people that are going to potentially be interested in what what you're trying to buy or what you're trying to sell, depending on the sign. So make sure they're in busy intersections. Also, too, make sure these signs you're going to be able to write on both sides of the sign. So you want to make sure somebody can see that sign coming and going. So make sure you write on both sides. So let's talk about we'll talk about how many in a second. Let's talk about what these signs say. So when you're looking for buyers, you have to have something that the buyers want to buy. Okay, so we use a sign like for finding houses. I'll put 3-1 Ranch, which basically just means these investors that are interested in houses, they're going to know what that means. They're going to know that means a 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch. And a ranch home is just a house that's on one level. There's no steps. There's not a 2-story. And ranch is probably one of the most popular houses around because of that. So a lot of investors like them. So I'll put 3-1 Ranch. And then what I do is I figure out, and I'm going to teach you more about this, when we do the segments on wholesaling. But I want to put a price that's really aggressive. I want to put a price that, hey, if you know that in your town a foreclosure in whatever neighborhood you're focusing on, if those foreclosures sell for $50,000, go a little bit below the foreclosures. So if the foreclosures are $50,000, I'll put on my sign, 3-1 Ranch, I'll put, $35,000. And then I always add in the word cash. I want to make sure that these people calling know that it has to be a cash buyer. Or remember, we talked about the overview with wholesaling. We want cash buyers. We want somebody that can close fast. We want somebody that knows that this is something they're not going to live in. A lot of times I'll add in fixer upper just by adding that. It makes it so that the average homeowner doesn't think, well, I can just buy it and move into it. And here's the kicker. So I like to put owner desperate. By putting owner desperate, that's like blood in the water. That's like, they know that seller is motivated, and that gives them motivates them even more to call that sign. And then you'll put your Google Voice number, whatever that Google Voice number is. You'll put that Google Voice number in. So that's what your sign says. It's to be written on both sides. You want to put out 25 of these signs. Now, warning, when you put out 25 signs that have this written on them, your phone is going to absolutely blow up. I'm telling you, you will probably get in the neighborhood of 100+ phone calls. Okay, these are all buyers that want this property. Now, you're saying, hey, I don't have that property yet. I don't have anything under contract. That's okay. What I want you to do in this particular case is I'm normally never going to tell you to do this, but in this particular case, when you're first starting out, don't answer the phone. Let every single call go to voicemail. The reason I want you to do that is because I haven't taught you everything to say yet, and this is an interactive training. So I want you to let it go to voicemail, and you'll see all the voicemails. It's going to go to Google Voice. They're not going to know who you are because you've got your Google Voice number. It's totally it's not traceable. So put out 25 of these signs, busy intersections, local number, Magnum Sharpie, handwritten, yellow with black writing, 18 by 24. Where do you get these signs? You get them at signwarehouse.com. Signwarehouse.com. Okay? You're just getting these are just the corrugated signs. There's the little H, what they call H stakes. They're wire frames, wire stakes. You can just pop them in the sign, they pop in the ground. There's other websites you can go to. I think there's one we get from cheapsigns.com. There's a lot of different places you can get them. But it's one of those things where signwarehouse.com, I bought a lot of signs from them, and it's good pricing. So I'm confident that that'll also work for you as well. So you'll have all of these calls will come in, let them go to voicemail. And what I want you to do now is I want you to go to signwarehouse.com and get those ordered. This is an interactive training. I got to get you to take action, so get those ordered and then hit pause and then come back. Okay, guys, it's time for an action step. Okay, so we're back. So you've got your bandit signs ordered. One thing to remember on your bandit signs, one reason we call them bandit signs is a lot of the cities and municipalities, they don't really like to have their whole city and town littered with signs. So that's one of the reasons why we mention you're only putting out 25 signs. But in case that a city ordinance person does call you, remember that number is untraceable, so they can't find you anyway. So if you have a lot of problems with the city ordinance people, one technique we'll do is we'll put the signs out on Friday and then Friday night, and then we'll pull them on Sunday night, so that none of the cities usually really care about that, because that's when most people put out garage sale signs and all that. Plus, the city doesn't work weekends, so that's one way to get around that. Okay, so you're going to get your signs in, you're going to write them out, and then you'll pop them out in the busy intersections like I described. Get ready for your phone to blow up. So what's going to happen is we've got these buyer interview forms I want you to fill out. So I'm just going to kind of go through this real quick, but we do have a video I'm going to have you guys watch. But you've got the name. As you start calling these people back, you can fill out their name, phone number, email. Where their office is at, if you want to fill that in. But you can say, "Hi, my name's Matt. I'm just calling you back regarding the house you called about." And I always say this. Now remember, we don't have a house yet. Once you get your house, you're making offers, and we're going to talk about that, and you actually get a house under contract, obviously you're going to change this a little bit. But for now, you're going to say, "Hey, I apologize. I called you a little premature. I don't have that property locked up officially yet. I don't want to give out any details of the house because it's not locked up." And a lot of times if they say, "Well, why?" You can say, "Well, I'm just trying to protect the owners of that house's privacy. So I need to get it locked up first before we talk any of the details." But then I say, "But let me ask you a few questions," and you can start going through the questions. What areas are you targeting? You're trying to get as much information with this sheet as that you can, so that you can keep a log book of all your buyers and what they want. You'll actually keep these. So what areas are you targeting? How many properties did you buy last year? If they say 1, great. If they say 10, great. The more that they buy, the more opportunity you have to sell multiple properties to that one buyer. How many properties do you plan on buying this year? And a lot of times, no matter what they say, if they say, "Hey, I'm buying 10 houses this year," I'll double it. It doesn't matter if they say 100. I'll say, "Well, how come you don't plan to buy," if they say 10, I'll say, "How come you don't plan to buy 20? And basically what you're trying to discover is what's their bottleneck. If they say, "Hey, I just can't find the number of deals that I really want," well, then alarm goes off in your head. Hey, this person needs me. And one other thing I always fit in a lot of times as I'm talking to people, to buyers in general, I'll say, "Hey, I use creative marketing techniques to find the deals nobody else can find." What that's telling them is that you're doing something to find deals that they don't know about, and that's that just goes hand in hand with that deal's going to be at a discount. It's a really good one-liner to use. I'll say, well, how do you usually finance your deals? What I want them to say is, well, I don't finance them, I pay cash. Remember, we want cash buyers, so you'll mark that down. You want single-family homes or apartments. Do you base your purchase price on equity or cash on cash return? Cash on cash return, and we'll talk about that when we get into the rentals. How much equity or cash on cash return are you looking for? And then what's your maximum purchase price? A lot of times buyers will only buy certain price houses. So we like to get as much information as we can. So what we've got here, this is a great way to start logging all your buyers. Remember, you're going to have a lot of people to call back. Your buyers list is going to be huge after this one assignment. So, once you start calling back, get these filled out. Right now, I want to go to a video, watch this video, then I want you to print this document out and actually follow the steps. So we'll be back. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to fill out the potential cash buyer interview sheet. First, you're going to have to find potential cash buyers. There are a few ways that you can do this, such as posting an ad of a house for sale on Craigslist that you currently have under contract. Or, if you don't have one under contract yet, you can post a ghost ad. Once you begin to get the phone calls and messages from your ads, you can call them back and follow this script. Hi, my name is Amanda, and I'm just calling you back regarding the house that you called about. I noticed that you buy in some of the same areas that we sell. Are you looking to add any discounted properties to your portfolio? Go ahead and see what they say. And if they ask you about the property on Craigslist, you're going to go ahead with the subset if you don't currently have that property under contract. I apologize. I called you a little premature. I don't have the property locked up yet, but I don't want to give out any details about the house until I have it locked up. Let me go ahead and ask you a few questions. So here you're going to find out what this potential cash buyer is looking for. If they prefer move-in ready or rehab homes, if they have their own rehab teams in place, what areas that they target, how many properties they bought last year, and how many properties they plan to buy this year. Then you can go forth with this question, how come you don't plan to buy? Go ahead and double the amount that they stated above. How do they finance? So are they planning on using banks? Do they have cash, private lenders? Go ahead and write that down. If they prefer single-family homes or apartments. And then what they base their purchase price on, so equity or cash-on-cash return. And then how much do they expect to make per house, and what their maximum purchase price is. Once you finish asking them those questions, go ahead and thank them for their time, and let them know as soon as you secure a property meeting that criteria, you will send it right over to them. Make sure up at the top, you can do this at the beginning of the phone call or at the end of the phone call. Get all of their contact information so you can follow up with them once you do have a property under contract. And that's how to fill out the potential cash buyer interview sheet.
All right, so we're back. So we just talked about the bandit signs to actually find buyers. Now we're actually going to talk about the bandit signs to find sellers. Again, bandit sign is the foundational marketing piece that you guys have to do. It's a requirement. You can't go to the next marketing piece until you finish this one. So we're going to talk about what the sign says in order to get the sellers. Now, everything I wrote down, everything that we talked about for the bandit signs, 18 by 24, yellow with black writing, Magnum Sharpie, busy intersections, all that stuff stays the same. We're just changing the message on to find sellers. So what we're going to write on these is we buy houses, any condition, and then your phone number, your Google Voice number. Okay? Again, it's written on both sides. You're going to put these out in busy intersections. You're going to use 25 signs. This is going to attract people that want to sell their house and they're motivated to sell. You're not going to get as many phone calls as you do from the buyers, as you do with the sellers, but you're going to get phone calls. And again, what do that person calls, what are you going to say? Now, you can take this call right away. We're going to talk about the lead sheet on exactly what to say when these people call in a minute. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to fill out a real estate lead sheet. We use this sheet to find out information about properties, usually for sale by owners. So if they have an ad posted on Craigslist with a house for sale, if maybe we've sent out direct mail and we get a call back, you're going to want to fill out this lead sheet to find out information about the property for sale. So the first question you want to ask is how they heard about us. We want to find out what marketing techniques are working. So if it was direct mail, you want to list that here. Craigslist ad, go ahead and list that here as well. You want to find out their information. So you want their name and their phone number and email address if they have one. You want to find out what the property address is for sale, and if it's a single family, mobile home, multifamily, or other. Go ahead and get some more information such as bedrooms, bathrooms, and if it has a garage or a basement. Then you can ask if they have a pool. Usually property owners might not know square footage or year built. Go ahead and ask and write it down, but I always double check this information on the county website anyhow. And then you want to ask them what type of repairs are needed. If they say they don't know, you can kind of guide the conversation to ask specifically, about the roof, the furnace, electrical, anything like that may need repairs. And then what they think the cost to put in mint condition would be. Now, after they answer all of that, you want to ask them why they're deciding to sell, if they have HOA fees, how much they owe on the property, and then if they would take the payoff. So this question pretty much is just asking if they owe, $50,000 on the property, would they allow us to pay off that $50,000 and sell us the property? Okay, and then are payments and taxes current? And then you want to get an asking price. Once they give you that price, you want to ask if they're flexible, kind of see where they stand. A lot of sellers will, tell me to make an offer or they don't have an asking price right now. I usually try to push and just, ask them, if you were willing to sell tomorrow, what would your ideal price be? And sometimes I'm able to get an answer from them that way. Not all the time. So just try to push and get an asking price. It just gives you a starting point for the negotiations. Now, after you get all of this information, I usually just end with, thank you for the information. That's all I need right now. I'm going to go ahead and run the numbers and see what I can do for you, and I will give you a call right back. And then once I get off the phone, I go ahead and look up the assessed value of the property on the county website. I will go to Zillow and find the Zestimate. I will look at all of the comps in the area on Zillow and just try to get an idea of the value of the property. I'll look up what the seller paid for the property. That's usually listed on the county site, or sometimes you can find it on Zillow as well. And then, the price that they bought it for. What school district the property is in. You can usually find this on Zillow as well. If you scroll all the way down to schools, it'll have the school district. And then the quick comps is just an area where I'll put the Zestimate, the Trulia value, just estimates, quick estimates. Okay, and then once we run the numbers and see what we can make an offer on, we'll go ahead and circle yes or no. And then if we're making an offer, how much? And this is just for our internal use so we can keep this, because some of the time when we call back to make the offer, it will get rejected. But then, a couple of months later, they might give us a call back, and I will still have this sheet so I can see how much we offered them and if that offer still stands. Or sometimes I will give them a call back in a couple of months to see if they might be interested in our offer. And that is how to fill out the real estate lead sheet.
Okay, so we're back. So you printed out the lead sheet. Let's start going through that right now. Now the point of this lead sheet is, one, to track all of the potential deals that come down the pipeline. You don't ever want to throw away these lead sheets. Keep them in a file, because you never know when that seller will call you back. It happens all the time. You can load them on Dropbox. If you go to Dropbox.com, you can load them digitally. If that's how you want to do it, then you can name them and kind of find them easier. If you're not that high tech, you can just leave them printed out, put them in a folder somewhere. You'll be reminded when somebody says, "Hey, I called you 6 months ago." It happens all the time. So one is to track your deals. The other one is this sheet actually helps you. It tells you what questions to ask, but it also helps you negotiate. You'll see what I mean. So every time a seller calls, you'll go through this. Hey, the first question. Hey, how did you hear about us? Well, I want to make sure that you know what part of your marketing is working. So, for example, if you're, I'm going to be teaching you other ways to get deals. Right now, you just know bandit signs, since this is the foundational course. As you get other things, hey, I saw your ad on Craigslist. Well, I saw your sign on the side of the road. Oh, really? Well, which intersection was that at? You want to dial that down. You need to know where your marketing's coming from. There's an old saying in marketing that says, hey, I know half of my marketing's working. I just don't know which half. Well, you want to know what's working, because eventually, when you find a sweet intersection that's constantly drawing the calls, you'll find out that of all your 25 bandit signs you put out, 90% of the calls will come from 3 to 4 of the different signs. Eventually, you might be able to cut it back and just run the intersections that are pulling all the calls. So, how did you hear about us? Get their seller's name, get their phone and email address. Then ask what the property that they're selling, what that address is. Okay, is it a single family, mobile home, multifamily, whatever? I'll do multifamilies if it's like a duplex, triplex, or fourplex. Anything over that gets into commercial. I don't do any mobile homes. But that might not be the case in your area. If you want to do mobile homes, by all means, that's why we have it on the sheet. Then ask them the number of bedrooms. Ask them the number of bathrooms. Find out if there's a garage and if there's a basement. If it is a garage, how many stalls is the garage? If it's a basement, hey, is any of the square footage finished? Is there a pool? What's the square footage of the house? Now remember, if they don't know the exact square footage, that's okay. You can go on the county courthouse website and actually look up the square footage of the house. That's very simple, very easy to do. The same with the year built. The county courthouse website's going to have all that. But you still want to ask them so you can get their opinion. You're trying to get a snapshot of what this deal looks like. Okay, so then I like to ask them. Now remember, they called you with this price in mind that they wanted to sell this house for. Let's say it's a $100,000 house. They're thinking, I'm going to sell this thing for $85,000, okay? So then you say, hey, what repairs are needed? So what you're trying to do, there's 2 reasons why we're asking this question. One is, we actually really want to know what repairs are needed so we can help figure out a rehab cost. The other thing is we want them to verbalize the actual repairs. It helps them to remind, and it reminds them that all of this work, all this overwhelming amount of work that needs to be done that they can't afford to do or they don't want to mess with needs to be done. It helps them remember. They start thinking about the house. Well, the roof needs replaced and all the windows are bad and, there's a hole in the ceiling and, the basement is, the foundation needs a little bit of work. What happens is they're thinking, okay, I want to sell this house for 85 when they called you. Now all of a sudden they're telling you, all of these things, and then you hit them with the question, well, what would it cost to put that house into mint condition? Perfect move-in condition. So they just got done telling you all these repairs, and now they're saying, man, I just watched Flip this house a couple of weeks ago, and the rehab was $50,000. They don't understand prices that stuff can get done for, and those shows always exaggerate. So now you're thinking, okay, they were going to ask 85. They just said, hey, to put this in perfect move-in condition, it's going to cost $35,000. They don't really know. Now all of a sudden, they just mentally subtracted that off the price. So now they're thinking about that. And then I follow up with, hey, why are you selling? I want to know why they're selling. I want them to say, I got a new job, but I'm moving across the country in 2 weeks. That is half to sell. Okay? If they just say, well, I just wanted to see what you'd give me for the property, that's not have to sell. That's that want to sell. We want motivated sellers. So, does it have any HOA fees? You can write that down. And then I like to ask, well, how much do you owe on the property, or what's the payoff to the property? A lot of times they won't want to tell you, but a lot of times they'll just say, well, and I don't owe anything. So, if they don't owe anything, or if they do have let's say they do have a mortgage on it, and let's say they say, well, I owe $40,000 on this house. I always say, well, are you just looking to get the payoff out of it? So basically what I'm asking is, will you take the payoff? So ask them if their taxes and any payments are current. And then you're following all that up, and now you get to the asking price. So they told you it was going to need $35,000 in repairs. They told you they wanted, in their mind they were thinking they were going to ask $85,000 because they think it's worth $100,000. What's your asking price? Now they were going to say $85,000. Now they just said, I want $65,000 for the house. Okay, no matter what price they say, my next question is that price flexible? And then just keep it quiet until they say yes or no. Now remember, it doesn't matter if this is a $100,000 house and they say, I want $10,000 for the house. I'm still going to ask them, is that price flexible? I want to get it for the cheapest price that I can, but if you sound too ambitious, like $10,000, I'll take that in a minute, they're going to immediately back up and say, I'm selling this too cheap. But if they just got done saying, well, I want $10,000 for the house, then you say, well, is that price flexible? Now they're thinking, well, I don't even know if that's a good price. Now they're thinking cheaper. So that's where you want to start. That will get that price down. And then I always say, hey, I need to go back and do some research on the property. You'll see at the bottom of the sheet, it's internal use only. I say, I need to really go back and see and do some research on the property, and I'll get back with you to see if I'm interested. And then you'll get, if it's something that makes sense and you figure out the value and you say, hey, we've got some equity there, then set up a time to go meet with them and go walk through the house so you can physically yourself assess what the property needs for repairs. I'm going to be teaching you guys all that in a later segment. But this little lead sheet is gold. Make sure you fill one out. Don't try to just do it on a notebook. Don't take a phone call and expect that your caller ID will capture your number, because next thing you know, you're 3 calls deep and you don't know which number goes with which. Make sure you stick to this sheet, and it'll make your whole life a lot easier, and you'll get better deals. So I hope that helps. Go ahead and we're going to take a pause for a minute. Go through, practice going through this lead sheet, practice your voice, practice being confident, and then we'll come back. Okay, guys, it's time for an action step. Okay, so welcome back. So we went through the lead sheet. Now you've got all these details. How do we tell if it's a good deal? Well, we don't know yet until we figure out the actual value of the property. We would still need to go through and figure out the rehab cost, but we can't do anything until we have the actual value of the property. This is a critical step. I see more students making mistakes off of not figuring the value right. They go to Zillow, try to get the Zillow value, or they ask somebody that doesn't really know or doesn't know how to run comps, or even worse, they ask a realtor and the realtor doesn't even know how to run comps. Remember, in realtor school, when you take your test to learn how to become a licensed agent, you don't learn how to run comps. That has to be taught. And if it's taught wrong by the broker or whatever, then that agent never will learn how to do comps correctly. I've trained a lot of students over the years, and we've trained a lot of real estate agents that want to become an investor over the years, and most of them tell me that the stuff that they learn on finding the value, how to run comps, that's the best stuff that they've learned. So that's telling me that they're just not getting the right information. So what happens is people will, a new student will, not know how to run comps or not follow what we tell them to do, and they'll put a house under contract that they shouldn't because they're overpaying and they didn't know because they didn't run comps. Or in another case, they won't put a house under contract because they think it's worth a lot less than it actually is. I get a lot of deals from my competitors. They walk right past them. They don't think it's a deal when in reality it's worth a lot more than they think. This market's changing. Property values are going up. What you run comps a year ago, that house might be worth a lot more now. So a lot of times people forget about that and they're not staying on top of the market, or they just don't know. So it's a critical step. You must get good at this step. You must get proficient at running comps and finding value. So let's talk about it. So, well, first of all, when you're doing comps, one thing about it is, at the end here, I'm going to have you guys go to watch a video and do an action step and actually go through the process of doing comps yourself. But I'm also going to be teaching you shortly here on how to find a real estate agent. And one of the reasons we need a real estate agent is because that real estate agent has access to the MLS. The MLS, the Multiple Listing Service, is a paid website that the agents have access to. It's expensive. It costs them about $600 a year on average. They have access to this site. Now they can get access to all the sold properties and run comps. So they have really good data. We want to tap into that data by finding a realtor, putting them on our team, and having them run comps on something once we have it under contract. So, or potential deal we just want to check first. So, first of all, so there's 7 steps to finding comps on a property. Okay? So the first one is we need 3 to 5 sold properties. I call them solds, okay? That means we can't use a property that that is for sale. Like a lot of times I'll be talking to a seller and they'll say, "Yeah, I've got this house. I want to sell it." And they're like, "It's a great deal." They'll be asking $150,000 for it, and I can tell by looking at in an area that I know the values really well. I'll know right away it's worth $120,000, and I'll ask them, "Hey, why are you asking $150,000 for this house?" And they'll say, "Well, my neighbor across the street, my house is nicer than theirs. I've done more upgrades than them, and they've got their house for sale for $140,000, so mine must be worth $150,000. Well, the problem is doesn't work because their house hasn't sold. It's for sale. I could go into the worst neighborhood in any city and buy a house for $5,000 and the next day put a for sale sign in the front yard for $150,000. That doesn't mean I'll ever get an offer on it, but I could do that. So for sale houses isn't what we want. Sold property that's already sold. And the thing is what we're looking for is retail solds. In other words, houses that were in perfect move-in condition, because we're trying to find the after repaired value. We want retail condition houses. So how do we know that when we're looking through these listings? Well, one, you got pictures. If a realtor sends you comps, they're going to send you actual listings that have sold. You can go through the pictures and look to see if this thing's been recently updated. The other thing is there's a description box for every house that's listed as well, and that will always give a description of the house. And if you see stuff like beautiful home, custom cabinetry, move-in condition, new flooring, new roof. You see all that stuff, it's been updated. If you see stuff like, foreclosure, bank-owned, fixer-upper, needs work, all that stuff, that's not a retail condition house and we don't want to use it. We're looking for 3 to 5. You can't have just one, because what if that was a one-off deal and it sold for way over asking price, or way over for some special reason sold really high, or for some weird reason it sold really low. We need to get 3 to 5. The next thing is these 3 to 5 solds that are retail solds have to have been sold within the last 3 to 6 months. Okay, this market has changed a lot in the last couple of years, 5 years. And, house values are higher than what they were. And, these last 3 to 6 months will be it closes down the potential houses that we're looking at so that we find the most recent solds. So we want 3 to 6 months there. I used to, back in the peak of the market, I got started in real estate in 2005 when the market dropped, and in 2010, 2011 when the market was really low, 2009, I used to have agents call me up all the time. Matt, I got a great deal for you. You ought to buy this house. Back at the peak it sold for, $300,000 and you can buy it for $150 now. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, at that time, it was 3 years before that, and now we need, that wasn't relevant anymore. We need 3 to 6 months. So these houses have to have been sold within where 3 to 6 months have to be sold within a half-mile radius of your property. So if you've got a property right here, you draw a line half-mile around and draw a circle, that's the radius you need to stick within. So your 3 to 5 houses should be right in there. Now, what if, for example, you had a distinct dividing line. Sometimes it's railroad tracks. You've always heard the saying on the other side of the track. Sometimes it's a highway. Sometimes it's an interstate. Sometimes it's just going up to the top of a hill or something along those lines. But a lot of times there's a distinct dividing line in a neighborhood, and over that dividing line, the neighborhood changes. Either gets a lot better or a lot worse. So if you know about that, and your real estate agents can know about that, and you don't even have to be in real estate sometimes to know that stuff. You'll just listen and hear what people say. Make sure you don't include that. So if this on the other side of the tracks, the values dropped significantly, we would throw that particular comp out. So kind of keep that in mind when you're doing your half-mile radius. The next thing is they have to have the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms. Okay? A lot of times, if you've got a 1,000 square foot house that's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, and you've got a 1,000 square foot house that's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, well, which house is worth more? Which house will rent more? Even though they're the same size, that 3-bedroom is worth more and it'll rent for more. So you've got to make sure that you keep the same number of beds and baths and get as close to that as you possibly can. The next thing is the square footage of the house has to be within plus or minus 20% of your house. So if you've got a house that in the one you're looking at is 1,000 square feet, then the highest you can go, 20% added onto that, would be a 1,200 square foot house, and the low side of that would be 800 square feet. So we can't. Let's say for example, I see this happen where you'll have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,000 square foot house, and a realtor will send you a comp on a 3-bedroom, 2,000 or 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot. Well, they're the same number of beds and baths, but the square footage is way different. Those houses can't be used as comparable houses. So we've got to stay within plus or minus 20% and throw out the other ones. The next thing is the style of home. So, what's the most popular style of house out there? Well, it's a ranch in most cases. Different parts of the country have different, style of houses that are more popular. But if in your area a ranch home is the most popular style and you put a ranch home under contract, don't compare it against bungalows or split levels or colonial styles. Make sure you stay with the same style of home. Along with that is the garage. If you have a garage on your property, you need to comp against houses with garages. If you have a 1-acre lot, which is bigger than the normal size lot, is the one you have under contract, or you're offering on, then you need to make sure that the comps that you share or that you compare against are also have that 1-acre lot. You want to make sure that you get them as close as you can. Another thing that fits into style is school district. If you've got a rock star school district that everybody wants to live in, and you're outside of that school district with the house that you're putting under contract, well, then you need to comp. You can't comp against the houses that are in that school district because the values are going to change. So that all fits into style. You want to make sure you keep the same style. And then lastly is the age. You can't compare, a house built in 1900 with a house that was built in 2015 or 2016. You can't compare those. Even though a lot of old timers will challenge you against the fact that the older homes were built a lot better, which I'm not going to argue with. The fact of the matter is that the newer homes are worth more than the older homes. So you want to make sure that the age is within a few years, 5 to 10 years. If it's a really old home built in 1900, you can open that up a little bit to 20 years, 30 years in some cases. So the newer the homes, the closer the range needs to be. If that house is built in 2010, I would probably stay comps against houses within a couple years of each side of 2010. If it was built in 1950, I'd go, 5 to 10 years in that case. If it was built in 1900, I'd probably go 25, 30 years and be fine. So the newer it is, the tighter you need to restrict your comps. So keep that in mind. So those 7 steps are the things you need to focus on. Those have to be in place when you do your comps. Now, what we're going to do now, I've got a video created on how to take this information and turn it into actual math. And also in this video is for you to run your own comps. So you're going to get comps from your realtor. You're always going to have 2 sets of comps. You have to have 2. Don't just count on your realtor. What if your realtor does it wrong? You want to run your own comps, and we actually pulled sold houses from Zillow. Now, we're not using the Zestimate from Zillow. We're pulling the actual sold information from Zillow. So we use that information to figure our math and actually do the longhand process. And then we also use the realtor's opinion as well and have them run comps for us. You got to do both. You always have to have a backup. You want to make sure if you get 2 way different numbers, you need to dive in differently and start asking questions to the realtor. So go ahead and watch this video. It'll teach you how to do all that. Rewatch it if you have to. Take notes. So watch this video and then do an action step and actually pick out a house that you're going to look at, or do your own home for fun wherever you're living right now. Use that as an exercise and figure out the value, and then go through the math, do every step, and then see what you can come up with for the value. And that'll be good practice to get started. So once you get that done, come on back. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to use Zillow to run comps and find the ARV. The first thing you want to do is go to Zillow.com and type in your address. Go ahead and expand this file, and it will open up a new window. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the home facts. If for some reason the information is not here, there's usually a county website button that if you click on it, it'll take you to the assessment report where it should have most of the information for you. Okay, so to get started, I normally take a pen and a piece of paper, a notepad, and then I write down all of the home facts for the house that I want to run comps on. Looks something like this, but again, I start by just writing it down. Okay, so I take this information, and that's what I'm going to be looking for when I'm looking for comps. Now to find comps, scroll down the page, and you'll see nearby similar sales. If you click on that, it'll bring you to all of the houses that have sold that have been posted on Zillow. Keep in mind, this might not be all of the solds in your area. You might have to also check the MLS because sometimes they just don't appear on Zillow. Okay, so to get started, I take the information that I wrote down previously about our house, the 2-bed, 1-bath, 826 square feet, 1-story frame, built in 1880, no garage, and it does have a basement. So keeping those things in mind, I'll look through all of these comps here. And as you can see, this first one is a 2-bedroom, little high in square footage, but it also sold for $44,000. Now, when you're looking at comps, these lower end comps, you'll want to click on them and look through the pictures and the description to make sure that it is a retail sale, because a lot of them could be foreclosures or distressed sales. So you want to make sure you're only using retail solds when you're running your comps. There's a lot of 3-beds, so I'm just going to skip those for now. I'm looking to get as close to my property as I can. And here's our first 2-bed, 1-bath, 1,024 square feet. So The things we're looking for, again, when we're running comps is the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the style of the home, plus or minus usually 20% of the square feet, garage, basement, and then distance from the subject house. So here, our square footage range would be 661 to 991. So it's a little bit higher, but it's not too bad. So I'll go ahead and use this one. And if you look back, here it is right here. So I would start by, again, writing this information down right underneath my subject house. And once I've done that, I move on to the next one. Now to verify all of the information, you can right-click, open a new tab. And here we can see beds, baths, square footage, year built. You can see it is a single-family home. To get more information such as the style, or if it has a garage or a basement, you can click on the county website. And as we can see here, it does have a basement and it does not have a garage. So that's exactly what we want. So I'll use that as my comp. I'll write it down. And then I'll go back to my cells. And I continue looking. This one's a little high in square footage. Too many bedrooms. So process of elimination. Now here's the next one. 631 East 7th Street in Davenport. I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, open a new tab. Now we can see it's a retail sale based on the pictures and then the information that it gives here. We can also click on the county website so that we can get the rest of the information that it doesn't show on Zillow. And again, looks like most of the information is pretty similar. 2-bed, 1 bath, no garage. It does have a basement, built in 1900. So this would be a good comp to use. And as you can see, I have it right here. And you continue doing that until you get at least 3 good comps. Sometimes you might only be able to find 2. Just do what you can here. We like to say 2 to 4 comps is pretty good. 3 is ideal. So let's find one more. All right, this very next one, 1918 Bridge Avenue in Davenport. 2-bed, 1 bath, 902 square feet. So definitely something I want to look into. So I open up to find out the rest of the information. Okay. All right. So yeah, 2-bed, 1 bath, and see here. So let's go back up. So as you can see, Zillow has 902 square feet, but then if you look at the county website, they have 917 square feet. So it's not off by much, but that's something that you want to verify when you're running your comps to make sure that you have all of the accurate information, because square feet makes a huge difference when you're running your ARV. All right, so those are 3 pretty good comps. So I would have those all written down on a piece of paper. And now, once you find your comps, the next step is actually running the ARV. To do this, you want to take the sold price, which I have right here, and divide that by the square foot of the house. So 69,000 divided by 1,004 is 68.72. And you do this with each house. After you do that, you're going to add each price per square foot together. So that's these numbers toward the end here. And you're going to divide by the amount of comps you have. Okay, so we have 3 comps. So if you look at our math down here below, you'll see that we added them up together and we got 70.30 once we added them and then divided by 3. So I'll go ahead and add that in there. So what this number is, it's the average price per square foot. Okay, so we use that number to go ahead and multiply that by the square feet of our house, which is 826, and we get 58,071. Now here, this would be the last step unless for some reason you needed to make adjustments. Let's say your house had a 2-car garage and none of the comps did. You would need to adjust for that. It would increase the value. Same thing with a basement or extra bedrooms. And the best way to find out how much you would increase or decrease your ARV would be to talk to a local realtor, because all areas would be different. And that's how to run comps in ARV by using Zillow. This is a video on how to pull comps from the MLS. First, you'll need MLS access, or you can get with a realtor who can help you out by pulling these comps for you. You can walk them through this step by step by using this video. Now, once they're logged in, if you go up to the top and click Search Residential, it'll bring you to this page right here where you can input all of the criteria that is needed to pull comps. So basically, we want all of the properties that have sold. So under Status, uncheck Active Properties, and make sure Sold Properties are checked. Then in the closing date, we usually like to go back anywhere from 90 days to about 6 months, but you will find that sometimes you have to go back even further. So let's just go ahead and use the last 3 months for now. All right. Now, some of the things we want to look for when we're pulling comps is obviously the sold retail value properties, the time we go back from the close date, the style of the house, the amount of bedrooms, the amount of bathrooms, the square footage, if it has a basement or a garage. Now, we don't want to get too specific when we're pulling comps here. The main reason is, as you can see over here in this corner, each time you input some data, over here, this count is going to go down. So we want to make sure that we can at least pull a few comps. And if you get too specific with the data, it might not pull any comps for you. So what we suggest is putting in the number of bedrooms, leaving the bathrooms open, leaving the year built open, putting in the square footage, and the house that I'm using is a house with 826 square feet, so I'm going to do plus or minus about 20%. So I'll go ahead and put 661 and 991 here. We're going to go ahead and leave the style open. And then the last thing we definitely want to check is the distance from our house. So we try to get comps within half a mile from our house. Sometimes we have to go out a mile. To do this on the MLS, you want to select Advanced Criteria. Then you'll find a button, Search by Map. If you click here, you'll put your house in the search box, and you'll see a flag come up. Now, to get all of the houses in the surrounding area up to half a mile, you'll click Draw and Radius. You'll left click and drag until you get to half a mile. And then you'll click, and it'll load all of the results within half a mile. Now, if it does not load any results, we'll have to go out a little bit further. And over here in the corner, you'll see that no results were found. So if we add this, all of those numbers that were up here went down to a 0, meaning nothing matches our search. So what we can do is click on this again, and we can edit. Let's see what it does when we go out just a little bit further. This time we're going to go out a mile. And 3 listings were found. So let's add that to the criteria. And you can check your summary over here. So we have all of the sold properties since October of last year with 2 bedrooms, 661 to 991 square feet, and we went out about a mile. So as you can see, it only pulled up 3 properties. So if we would have filled in year built, number of bathrooms, we could be looking at 0 results. So what we can always do is click the search box, and then we can narrow it down further if there were, too many results. If there were, 10 comps that it pulled, then obviously we can go back and narrow it down a little bit more to be more specific to our property. But this is what we're looking at right now within a mile of our property. So we want to make sure we include all of these comps. So what you or your realtor could do is make sure all of these boxes are checked, and then you can actually email the hyperlink so you can look through the properties and just make sure that they are similar to yours. So if you click email, make sure all of the listings are selected. You can click Agent Full View, Add, and then Email. Now once you send that email, it'll give you a link to click on, which once you click on it, it'll open up all of the MLS pages that you just emailed yourself. So what this allows you to do is now you can look at how many bathrooms your property has, if it has a garage, if it has a basement. You can also look at the details to make sure that it's not a distressed property, that it is retail sold. And then you have 3 good comps that you can use. Now, once you find your comps, all you have to do is take the sold price of each comp and divide it by the square foot of the house. So let's say one of the homes sold for $69,000 and it had 1,004 square feet. You take the $69,000 and divide it by 1,004 and you get $68.72 price per square foot. You do that for each comp, and then after you do, you'll add them all together and divide by how many comps you had. And all you are doing is finding the average price per square foot. So here's what that would look like in our example. Once you have that number, you take it and multiply it by your home's square footage. So let's say your house has a square footage of 826 square feet. This would be the example. The average price per square foot times the square footage of your home gives you the ARV. Now, if your homes, your subject house and your comps are very similar, meaning they have the same number of beds, baths, around the same number of square footage, they're relatively built around the same time, they're similar in garage and basement, this ARV should get you pretty close to what the retail value would look like. If for some reason you had to make some adjustments based on variations, maybe one of your comps has a garage or maybe your home has a garage and the comps don't, you'll need to adjust up or down depending on your area. There is no set rate of adjusting for a garage or adjusting for a basement because depending on the area, those things may be more valuable in some locations than others. So the best thing you can do is ask your realtor how much you should account for when adjusting your ARV for those things. And that is how to pull comps and run ARV using the MLS.
Okay, so welcome back. So now I want to talk a little bit about building your team. And before we jump into that, we need to talk about what caliber of players you put on your team. So we call those A players. Now, the difference between hiring an A player and hiring a B player isn't just hey, if I hire a B player just to get somebody on the team versus an A player, it doesn't mean you'll do less deals or make less money. It probably means you'll do no deals, okay? That's how significant it is to put the right people on your team. And when I say hire, I don't mean just hire like you're going to put somebody on payroll. We're talking about most of the people that work in real estate that work on your team work for no pay up front. They get paid through the transaction. So for example, a real estate agent, you don't pay the agent per hour or by the week. They don't make any money. They actually get paid from the seller and when the deal closes. So they literally don't make any money directly from you. The seller pays all the real estate agent's commission, and that happens at closing. So they work, for free until that deal closes. The same with a title company. I mean, the title company, they're going to get paid when the transaction closes, and that's going to come through the proceeds. So that's not something you're just going to pay them out on. But it still makes a huge difference if you hire a rock star A-player real estate agent or a rock star title company. That makes a big difference on how well that deal's going to go and if it closes or not. So I actually have a little A-player printout that you guys will have access to below this video. I want you to print it out, but we're going to go through some of it right now. So what is an A player? Well, an A player always shows up on time. Hey, one of my biggest things is if I'm going to meet a realtor at a house and we say we're going to meet there at 2 o'clock and that realtor doesn't get there until 2:30 and every time they show up they're always late, that's not an A player. That's a B player. Your time is valuable. We got to make sure people show up on time. An A player always does what they say they're going to do. If you call a realtor and you say, hey, I need comps for 123 Main Street, and they say, yeah, okay, I'll send those out to you, and then the next day they still haven't gotten to you yet, and you have to call and remind them all the time, that's not doing what they say they'll do. An A player always says please and thank you. In this business, a lot of times people think, I hear this all the time, well, I've got this real estate agent and they work for me. Well, that's not really the case. I mean, you need to understand that these real estate agents, they work for themselves, even though that you might be their client. They're not reporting to you. You're not their boss. You're working together. So always be polite and make sure that, you're friendly and it's just easy to do business with. An A player never has to be told twice. I'm one of those guys, I don't want to follow up with somebody to make sure that they did something. I want to tell them once and know that it's done. If I hire somebody and I'm constantly reminding them and hoping they did it, then that's the wrong person on my team. That's not an A player. So you never have to follow up with what they're doing. The other thing, too, is pay rate doesn't create an A player. You can't take somebody that's doing okay and they're kind of doing all right and then just say, hey, I'm going to double the amount I'm going to pay you and expect them to turn in an A player. Pay rate does not affect an A player. An A player can take a little bit of information and follow it all the way through the end, putting all the pieces together so that if you don't tell them the exact steps to take, they can figure it out on their own. That's the sign of a good A player. An A player can take on problems and fix the problems and don't have to get you involved with it. An A player will never say, I don't have enough time. It's a pet peeve of mine when I give somebody something to do and they say, I'm just too busy. I can't get it done. That's not an A player. An A player never tears somebody else down just to make themselves look good or places blame on somebody else so that they don't have to take the blame themselves if they make a mistake. An A player has a results-oriented mindset. They're not just keeping busy, going through the motions, putting in their time. They're attacking each day knowing that the end result is what they're trying to achieve. So those are the things that I always want you to keep on your mind, whether it's a real estate agent, title company, contractor. It doesn't matter who it is. You want to be watching for those things. If you start spotting those things, then you need to replace that person on your team very, very quickly. Okay, guys, it's time for an action step. Okay, so we're back. Okay, so let's talk about real estate agents. Now, even if we're going to do deals that don't require an agent, you're going to go out and you're going to, like we've already taught, use bandit signs, find sellers that don't have an agent and buy those deals without an agent. We still want an agent on our team. I'm going to be teaching you how to find MLS deals soon. You're going to use the agent to make those offers because any property that's listed online, that offer has to go through an agent, okay? But we need them for that. We need them for help us run comps. The other thing too is every agent can, if they're a rock star agent, they can lead you to other people on your team. For example, we're going to be talking about title companies. Sometimes they can give you a few title companies they already work with that they know do a good job. Same with contractors. They can lead you to contractors, carpenters and plumbers and electricians that already, do a good job that they know. So I like to, have real estate agents on my team for those reasons as well, not only just to put out offers. But the challenge is we're looking for an investor-friendly agent. So believe it or not every agent wants to work with investors, okay? To repeat that again, not every agent wants to work with investors. It's not one of those things where you're going to step into real estate and you're going to think that everybody immediately wants to do deals with you. I found that out very quickly. Just because you're looking to buy houses doesn't mean that, every agent in town is going to work with you. Some agents only want to deal with luxury homes. Some agents, want to work with first-time home buyers only. Some agents only want to work with, house prices in X price range. You just, they have to have their own business. But the problem is you need to find a real estate agent really fast. So, I've spent years dialing this process in, and I've actually got a process that works really good to help you go right to the agents that are the best agents. Now, I'm not saying you're going to do this and you're going to get a rock star the first call, but usually within 3 to 5 calls, you're going to have a really good agent. So here's how this is going to work. And there's actually a printout that you guys can print off below that will walk through this whole process with you. But in summary, here's what you're really going to do. So there's 2 real estate agencies, companies that right out of the gate are most of the time investor friendly. Now every office is different, every part of the country is a little different. But what I mean is RE/MAX and Keller Williams, both of those companies were started by investors. They were probably investors that were doing all these deals and they realized that, hey, this would be, I'm doing all these deals, I might as well capture some of the commissions myself by hiring my own real estate agents. And that's how those companies were formed. These were investors buying houses. So what's the chances that a company that was formed by an investor has investor-friendly agents, or the basic premise behind the company is, hey, we like working with investors. So the chance is pretty good. So one of the things I do is I want to go right to the investor-friendly agents. And who better knows who those agents are? There's 2 people in that company that know who the investors are within those branches that work with investors. And that's the receptionist. That's one, and the broker is the other one. So what's the chances that if you, let's say you want to go to, one of the techniques is you go to remax.com and you search for offices, okay? You're not searching for individual agents because, you'd have to call, if that branch has 80 agents, you got to call every single one before you find the one that actually likes working with investors. Instead, I call the office and I talk to the receptionist. Again, the receptionist generally knows who works with investors within the office and who doesn't. So I'll get on the phone with the receptionist. Hi, my name's Matt. I'm an investor in the area, and I'm looking to speak to an agent that works with investors. Okay, she or he says, okay, hang on a second. You want to talk to Joan. So she goes and gets Joan, and Joan gets on the phone. The next thing I say is I just repeat what I just said. Hey, I was talking to the receptionist, and she said that, I told her that I wanted to speak to an agent that works with investors, so you must work with investors, correct? Yes, exactly. That's, one of my specialties is working with investors. So what I do next is important because I want to find out what the mindset of that agent is. And what I mean is some agents that, work with investors, they just think that you should buy a house, pay full price, and rent it out, and, in 3 years when the market goes up, sell it and make a profit. That's really not what we're looking for. We're looking to create value now. If that agent can't provide that kind of service, then we need to go to the next person. So what I do is I give them a scenario and I see how they react to it. So I'll say, well, what I'm really looking to do is I want to buy a house, fix it up, and sell it and make a $15,000 to $20,000 profit. And what that agent says next really decides whether or not I'm going to work with them or not. If they say, oh, well, you can't do that right now, the market's too hot, you got to buy it and just pay full price and then wait for the market to go up and sell it after that, then that would be a no, I'm not going to work with that agent. But if that agent responds, yeah, I'm working with several investors right now that are flipping properties, I can help you, I can show you right what areas are the best for that opportunity. Boom, now we know we have an agent that's investor friendly that we want to work with. So what I'll do at that point is I'll roll into my 25 to 1 and start going through what I'm looking for and give that as an assignment to the agent so that I get some listings coming towards me. But what I want you to do for an action step right now is I want you to go to remax.com or kw.com for Keller Williams. I want you to search for your area, find the offices in area, write down 5 to 10 offices, the office phone number, and get that all ready to go. And then the next step, we'll call them in a minute. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to find a real estate agent. There are 2 companies that like to work with real estate investors, Remax and Keller Williams. Those 2 companies actually train their agents to work with investors. So start by searching Remax and Keller Williams offices. I'm going to show you how to search real estate offices with the Keller Williams website. First, go to kw.com. Then we want to click Office Search. Go ahead and put in your city, or the city that you're looking for an agent, and your state. And click Search. Quite a few offices have popped up, so what I could choose to do is call each one, or I can look and see which office is closest to me by hovering over the KW icon. So let's say we wanted to start by contacting this first office. Go ahead and call this phone number, and then if you look back at our script, you're going to see that most of the time in these offices, a receptionist will answer the phone. You want to let them know that you're an investor and you're looking to speak with an agent that works with investors, and ask if somebody's available. Once the agent gets on the phone, you're going to want to let them know that you're an investor that plans to buy property in the area and you're looking for an agent to work with. Your strategy is to buy, fix, and sell a property. And you want to turn a $20,000 to $25,000 profit. Now, keep in mind, depending on your area, that profit margin could change. You want to let them know that this is not a long-term strategy and you want to be in and out of the deal quick. Don't let them know that you plan to sign a contract or double close or any other specifics. All they need to know is how you're going to lock the contract up. So some questions to ask while you're on the phone is where the hot spots are right now, where most of the investors are active, and what part of the town are all the investors making the money. What that does is that allows them to lead us to the areas based on their expertise. Once we've discovered where the hot spots are and where the properties are, our intention is now to ask the agent to send us some listings of the properties. Some criteria that we ask for when we ask them to send us listings are starter homes in those hot areas that we asked them about previously. We want all properties that are listed as is or needs work. This does include foreclosure properties as well and bank-owned properties. We prefer vacant properties. And we also like price reduced, back on market, and any properties that have been on the market longer than 10 to 14 days. So try to get those listings that same day. Let them know that you're a very serious investor and you would like to put some deals together fairly quickly. Ask them if there's any way that they can email you some of those listings, meeting those criteria today, and then you can go from there. After they hang up, if they say that they'll send you listings, make sure you give them your email address and then just wait and see if they send you those listings. I would call a few offices to begin with, because that very first person that you talk to might say that they'll send you listings and then you never end up receiving them. That's happened to me a few times. So start by calling a few offices, make sure you get a few agents to send you listings, and then go from there. Go ahead and narrow down your search of the agent based on how quickly they get back to you, if they're able to meet your criteria with the listings they sent. And then you can go from there with the agent that you choose. And that is how to find a real estate agent with the Keller Williams website.
Okay, so we're back. So you've got your list of real estate offices that you're going to be calling here in a minute. I'm going to give you another assignment. But for right now, we're going to jump into the 25 to 1, so then you can call your real estate agents and start filtering through to find the best ones and then give them some information so that you can get some listings coming toward you so that you can get this process started. So first of all, what does the 25 to 1 mean? Well, with the 25 to 1 is a filtering system. What I've done over the years is figure out what's worked. When I started looking at the offers that I had gotten accepted, there was some similarities between each one. And we basically broke all those similarities down and figured out which properties were being accepted at the lowest price. So it's a filtering system. The only thing is you won't have to go through the long process that I did before this was really figured out. You get to go right to the best deals. So how does this work? So when you call your real estate agents, this is what we do for the houses that are listed with real estate agents on the MLS. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to pull all of the listings that we want from the agent. The first criteria, the first filter we're looking for is houses that are listed as is. So every house, there's a description box in that listing. And if that agent lists the property as is, that'll come up. That's a searchable feature within that listing. So everything that I'm showing you is something that agent can search for and pull in for you. So what does as is mean? When a seller lists a property as is, what they're saying is I don't have any money and I can't afford to fix anything within this house. So if you buy it, you're buying it as it sits right now. So is that a motivated factor if somebody says, hey, I'm listing it as is? Yes, we know that houses that are listed as is have a motivated seller. The second thing we look for is the vacant homes. I love to buy vacant homes. Here's what I'm thinking that the seller's thinking when they have a house that's listed vacant. If it's vacant and they own the house, that means they own that house, but they live somewhere else. So what they're doing is they're paying for two. If they're paying for two different houses, are they motivated to sell? Likely that they are. So we like that. The other thing about vacant homes is they're easy to check out and walk through and look at. And also, if you're wholesaling that deal, it's easy to show your buyers because there's nobody living there. So we like the vacant homes. And then the last thing we look for is a price reduction. If that house was listed for whatever price, and a week goes by or a month goes by or 90 days goes by and they've lowered the price, then we know that they've already admitted that they were wrong, that they listed it too high. Now, a lot of times people say, well, just go after the houses that have been listed for the longest amount of days. But I always say, well, that's not necessarily true. That can be a motivating factor. But more so, imagine this. If somebody listed a house and lowered the price after 1 week, or somebody listed a house and lowered the price after 3 months, who's actually more motivated in that case? Well, it's the person that lowered the price after a week, because they're actually making a decision to lower the price very quickly. That means they're probably wanting some action on that house and some offers really fast. So we tell the agent, just in our script, we just talked when we called the agent, I'm looking to buy, fix, and sell a house and make $15,000 to $20,000 profit. And that agent says, yeah, I can help you with that. I've got other investors I'm working with right now. Okay, so here's where you go from here. So you say, okay, great. Here's what I'm looking for. I want you to send me houses that are listed as is, that are vacant, or that have had a price reduction. You don't have to have all three. You can have either ones. But imagine if you get, if they send you houses that are listed as is, that's somewhat motivated. If they're as is and vacant, that's another level of motivation. And if they're as is vacant and they've had a price reduction, that's another level of motivation. So what's the chances those are a really motivated seller? It's very, very good. So that's just the first filter. Then what we want to say is we want 3-bedroom homes. I like 3-bedroom the best because that's the most popular. Can you flip and wholesale 2-bedroom homes? Absolutely. But what I'm looking for is the path of least resistance. So I want 3-bedroom homes. I want the starter home price range. We're looking for starter homes. You should be able to say the term starter home, and that agent should know what you mean. And, versus just giving a price, because if you're new and you don't know where houses are priced at, why give a price range? If you say starter homes in Southern California, you might be, dealing with houses that are $450,000 to $550,000. If you say starter homes in a smaller community in Iowa, you might be talking $30,000 to $40,000 houses. If you're a starter home in Las Vegas, you might be at $200,000. So all it means is that gives the agent the price range we want to focus. Why do we like the starter homes? Because there's a lot of them out there, and that's what investors buy. They like the cheaper homes, okay? So we want the 3-bedroom homes, we want the starter home price ranges, and we like hot areas. Now remember, even if you're buying a fix and flip, or you're buying a rental property, you like the starter homes. When we talk in the fix and flip segment, we're going to get into more some price ranges and talk more about fix and flip. But the starter homes are usually the rental properties in the area as well. So whether you're wholesaling or doing rental properties or lease options, the starter homes works. So now you've got 2 filters. You've got as is vacant price reduction. This is describing the actual seller of the property. And then this over here, this describes the actual area, or the property itself. And again, hot areas, what I mean there is we're looking for where's the activity. Where do people want to be? We don't want to be in the really high crime areas where people aren't buying. We want to be in the areas that people are buying, that you can sell houses fast. Again, can you flip houses and have rental properties in some of the higher crime areas? Yeah, and we're going to talk about that, but it's this path of least resistance. So you're talking to your agent, hi, I'm looking for, I want to buy, fix, and sell. I want to buy, fix, and sell. I want to make a $15,000 to $20,000 profit. And they say, yeah, we can do that. Okay, list as is, vacant, that have a price reduction. I want 3-bedroom homes, starter home prices in hot areas. And I always tell them, send me 30 to 40 listings that meets that criteria. And then I'll take those 30 to 40 listings. I always say this too, because if you want to get an agent on your side, say this because then they think that you'll actually do some of the work and they won't have to do everything for you. Is I'll say, hey, send me 30 to 40 listings. I'm going to do all the work and go through each listing and narrow it down to my favorite 5 to 7 listings. What you just did by saying that is you're telling the agent you're not lazy. You're also telling the agent, hey, this person's not going to make me walk through 40 houses and waste all my time. They're going to put you at the top of the list of people they want to work with. So you've already made a good first impression. So that's important. So once you get those listings, then you're going to take it to the next filter. The next filter is the description box. In that description box and the pictures, we're going to look at the pictures and the description box, and we're going to figure out which of these houses need work, okay? So what we want, we're looking in the description box, we'll look for terms such as handyman special, needs TLC, whether it says foreclosure or, needs work. If it says something like perfect move-in condition, beautiful updates, and all of that type of stuff, we know that seller's probably not motivated. They're not looking to sell at a major discount if they've already put all the repairs in, more than likely. But if you see needs TLC, fixer-upper, handyman special, needs total remodel, those types of things you're looking for, you know that there's a chance that you're going to get that one cheap. So you've created a filter that gets you to those types of properties. Now that takes it from the 30 to 40 down to 5 to 7. Those 5 to 7 are the ones that we're going to offer on. So I've got an action step for you. So what I want you to do, go through, take the rest of the script to the real estate agents. You've got your real estate agent's offices listed out. Like we did in the last action step, I want you to pick up the phone, start calling agents, finish out the whole script with using the 25 to 1, get those listings coming in, and then we're going to talk in a little bit about how to make those offers. So we'll be back in a little bit. Okay guys, watch this video and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to perform the 25 to 1 system. The 25-to-1 system is a method that we use that guarantees us the best deals. This is not just throwing out a bunch of offers and hoping that one gets accepted. It's a fine-tuned filter, and you have to follow the process the right way to make it effective. So basically, as the name states, 25-to-1 means putting out 25 offers and getting one deal accepted. If you put out 25 offers and you get 3 deals accepted, you're offering too much. You need to adjust your multiplier and make lower offers. At the same time, if you put out 25 offers and you get nothing accepted, you need to adjust your multiplier and make higher offers. Initially, when beginning to submit offers, you can start by offering 20% less than the asking price, and then if nothing comes back accepted, you can bump it up 5% and resubmit your offers. However, if you do this and 3 come back accepted, you need to back out and offer less. Play with these numbers until you find the percentage that makes the 25-to-1 system work in your area. First, you're going to need to find a realtor and request that they send you about 50 listings. We usually look for properties that are as-is, vacant, price-reduced, 3-bedroom, starter homes in hot areas. Once you receive these listings, you'll want to go through them and narrow them down. We don't want to submit 50 offers to a new realtor. So start by narrowing it down to about 10 offers and submitting those. So how are you going to weed through the listings? Well, first you can look in the comments box for keywords such as is, needs work, handyman special, and anything else that shows motivation or that the house needs work. So once you come up with your offers, go ahead and submit those to the realtor. If you get an offer accepted, you'll need to go to the property to verify its condition. Also, there's no need to write earnest money checks for every offer that you submit. You only need to submit earnest money when the offer has been accepted. Now, you don't have to submit 25 offers in 1 week. In fact, as I stated above, we don't want to burn out a new realtor. So like I said, you could submit 5 to 10 offers per week and use the full month to submit all your offers. However, this doesn't mean you should take a year to submit your offers and expect to get one accepted. You want to build some momentum. So the key to this process is offers. Don't be afraid to put in those offers. You have the 14-day whole house inspection period. Make sure that that is in your contract every time. That way, if you can't wholesale it, you can back out on day 13.
Okay, so welcome back. So before we make our offers, we're going to go through how to find a title company or attorney that's investor friendly. And the biggest reason why we want an investor friendly real estate attorney or title company is because if you decide to wholesale, those are a little bit more complicated deals that have a little more moving parts. Not necessarily for you, but for the actual real estate attorney or title company. And notice I say title company or attorney. There are some states that actually are they're title company states, and they basically operate and close deals through a title company. And there's some states that are actually an attorney friendly state, or they basically close with an attorney. So we'll have a printout below for you. You can print out and you can check your state to see which one yours is. But even if you didn't know that, by calling real estate companies or title companies, you're going to find that out really fast. So I've got a little way to find really good title companies. And we've got some printouts below that you can print out and follow along, and some scripts. So here's how you're going to find your real estate attorney. You're going to go to yp.com, which is yellowpages.com. Type in the city you're going to do real estate, and where you're going to be buying and selling, and for what, type in real estate attorney. Now, one side note I want to note here is we're going to do business with real estate title companies and attorneys that focus on real estate and they practice real estate law. For example, we don't want to deal with bankruptcy attorneys and divorce attorneys and those people. We want to do business with people that practice and close real estate every single day. So what you're going to do, once you got your list of title companies and attorneys, call. You're going to a receptionist is going to answer the phone. You say, "Hi, my name's Matt, and I'd like to speak to a real estate attorney. Is somebody available?" And then once that attorney gets on the phone, you can say, "Hey, my name is Matt. I'm a real estate investor in, Davenport, Iowa. I'm currently looking for a real estate attorney in the area, and I have a few questions to see if we would have a good fit. Notice that verbiage. What I'm saying is, hey, I don't necessarily want to work with you. I want to ask you some questions to see if you're going to be a good fit for me. It's a real posture statement that gets them kind of chasing you. And the attorney will say, okay, well, what would you like to know? Well, what I do is I make multiple very low offers every week. Many times I get 2 offers accepted at the same time, but I may only have the cash to close one of those deals. But the other deal is still under contract at a very low price. So I have several other investors that want any of the deals that I can't close myself. In that case, I usually assign the contract or I double close. You do handle assignments of contract and double closes, correct? If the attorney says yes, then proceed. If they say, no, we don't really handle that stuff, I don't really know, then just move on. Thank them for the time, move on to the next call. If they say yes, they say, okay, great. When I double close a deal, I like to do the first transaction dry, meaning the second transaction funds the first. So that is how you handle double closes, correct? And if they say yes, then you can do a dry double close. I'll get into that a little bit more in the wholesaling section, but that's what you want. So boom, you've got a real estate attorney title company at that point to do all your deals. So that's what we follow. You can follow the script exactly, just exactly as it reads, and it's going to work. You'll usually find somebody within the first 2 or 3, 4 phone calls. You'll get an investor-friendly title company. So here's what I want you to do. Print out this script for the title company. There's actually going to be a couple of different sheets. I think there's 3 total. Print all 3 of those out. Start going through them. Call title companies and start making calls and get actual title companies that say that they are investor friendly. That answer all the questions correctly here, and then write those down, and then we'll be back. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to find a title company or an attorney to close your real estate transactions. The first thing you want to do is go to google.com or another search engine and type in Yellow Pages or yp.com. And depending on what state you're in, you're going to want to type in title company or attorney. So research that first. Find out if your state is a title company state or an attorney state. And then go ahead and type in title company. And then type in your location or the location in which you're looking for a title company or an attorney. Okay. So here's our directions on how to find a real estate attorney. We did the first one. Go to yp.com. Okay, and you're going to get several pages of results. So what we do is start with the last page and work your way forward. This allows us to work with the smaller attorneys that maybe have a little bit of less business, so we can get a more personalized service and faster customer service as well. And usually they're allowed to be able to perform a little bit more flexibility within those transactions than a lot of those larger companies will be. So let's go back, and as you can see, if you scroll down, we get 246 results. So if I were to start the process, I would go to the very last page. And it looks like actually our results went up. But just go to that very last page, and then what I do is go ahead and get either a pencil and paper, or you can do this on your computer. Take down the name and the phone number, and sometimes even the location, because multiple companies will come up, and that way you just have an idea of where the specific one that you talk to is located. And then after you get quite a few of those, you can start with 10. It's really just up to you. You're going to want to start making those calls. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this. All right, now once you start making the calls, this is where the script is going to start. So you're going to say, hi, my name is, and I would like to speak to a real estate attorney. If you're calling a title company, go ahead and just ask to speak to the closer of the title company. And if they have any questions what it's regarding, just let them know you're looking for somebody that can help you close real estate transactions and you have a few questions. Okay, and then is someone available? Side note, we only work with attorneys that do real estate closings. So if you, I search title company. In the example, if you search attorneys, make sure that you choose those attorneys that have real estate closings or experience, not, like a divorce lawyer or a bankruptcy lawyer. They're not going to be able to help you. So make sure you look at those when you filter the yellow pages. Now, once you have the attorney or the closer on the phone, you start by introducing yourself and tell them you're currently looking for a real estate attorney in the area and you have a few questions to see if you would be a good fit. And they're usually going to ask, okay, go ahead and ask the questions. What would you like to know? Okay, and this is where you're going to explain kind of what you do. Well, what I do is make multiple very low offers every week, and usually we get 2 or more offers accepted at the same time. But I may only have the cash to close on one of the deals. But the other deal is still under contract at a very low price, so I have several other investors that want any deals I can't close myself. So in that case, I generally assign the contract or double close. You do handle assignments of contract and double closes, correct? And this is where they're either going to say, yes, they do, no, they don't, or sometimes they may have to check and get back to you if you're not speaking to the right person. So if they say yes, you're going to proceed. If they say no, go ahead and thank them for their time and hang up. Go ahead and move to the next call because they're not going to be able to help you out with your transaction. Okay, so if they say yes, you can go and say, when I double close, I like to do the first transaction dry, meaning the second transaction funds the first. What that really means is when you do a double close to the end buyer, your buyer, you're not going to put up any of the money. So the end buyer is going to wire in the money, and it's going to cover both the first and the second transaction. And that's ideal. Okay, so you want to make sure that they can do dry double closes. And then if they say yes, great. Go ahead and move forward. We have another sheet that you can fill out with more information. And if they say no, go ahead and keep calling because you may find an attorney or title company that can do them. I've done this quite a few times, and I usually get the answer. If you call just a few people, you'll see that some of them might tell you that it's not possible. They don't do that in that state. But, the more that you call, you will find somebody. It's happened to me plenty of times where I've been told that it's impossible, and then the next few calls I make, I'm able to find somebody that can do it. So don't give up. Make sure you keep calling. Now, if they say yes, go ahead and let's move on. All right, so right here we have the real estate attorney or title company lead sheet. So after you know that they do double closes and they can do dry double closes and handle assignments of contract, you can move over here and go ahead and mark those if they've already answered. If they haven't answered, you'll still want to ask if they handle the assignment of contract, double closings, and dry double closings. Go ahead and mark here. Okay, and then you want to move forward by asking them the cost. So what the cost of an average closing fee is, how much title insurance costs, what it costs to do a title search, and the areas that they'll cover. You also want to make sure you ask if there's any discounts available for volume. Most title companies that I've talked to do offer discounts, so make sure you ask. And after you finish completing this form, you can go ahead and thank them for their time and tell them that you'll be in touch. And then don't forget to come back up here, put down the name of the office, the attorney or the closer that you spoke to, their phone number, and then if you can get an email address while you're on the phone, that's even better so that you can follow up later if you have any further questions just by email. And that is the how to find a real estate attorney or title company.
Okay, so the next thing I want to bring up is if you're making offers with realtors, they're likely that they're going to ask you for proof of funds. Now, a proof of funds letter is easy to get. I actually have a video that I'm going to send you guys to, another action step. I want you to watch the video. and then follow the steps and print out the proof of funds letter. But before you do that, just remember that proof of funds is basically, it's an MLS, it's only used for MLS deals. When you create your own marketing and you get sellers to call you that want to sell their property through bandit signs and some of the other stuff, you're never going to have to do proof of funds for any of that. It's something that the real estate agents are just taught to ask. So if you're going to buy a property for $100,000 and you're going to say it's a cash offer, they're going to ask you to see that you've got $100,000 cash ready to go. And a lot of people, especially starting out, I know, especially with me starting out, I had no money to show for proof of funds. So this is going to be a big help. This will take that weight off your shoulders. It's very easy to do. It's free, but you're going to need it for the MLS offer. So I know you're going to be making offers on the MLS deals shortly with everything that you've got coming at you from running the 25-to-1. So I want you to go to the video, watch the video, and then go to the website we refer to, print out your proof of funds. That's your action step, and then we'll be back. Okay, guys, watch this video, and then it's time for an action step, and I'll be back as soon as the video is done.
This is a video on how to find a proof of funds letter using a transactional funding company. So we use besttransactionfunding.com. So if you type that in your search bar, it will bring up a page that looks like this. And then you can go down on this very first block and see proof of funds here. Click on that. Okay, now we can scroll down and see on the left-hand side of your page, free POF letter. Go ahead and click that. And it's going to bring you to a page where you enter your personal information the way you want it to appear on the letter. So go ahead and type in your name and the rest of the information. Okay, property info type. So it will let you choose if it's a residential or commercial property. So go ahead and whatever your property is, make sure you choose that. If it's commercial, go ahead and change it. Property address. This is where you can put in the address of the property that you're looking to make the offer on. Okay. All right, after you finish filling in that information, scroll down to your offer amount. So if you're making an offer on this property for $60,000, you're going to put in $60,000 here. If it's $150,000, go ahead and put that in. Whatever the offer amount is on the property, that's what you want to put here. Okay? And then your letter type. You can choose to leave it as company and name, or if you want to put it in your company name only, if that's what you're purchasing in, you can change it here. Or if it's being purchased in your personal name, you can change that here as well. I'm going to select company name only. And then scroll down and you have to choose that you have read and accepted the disclosures before you can submit. So after you do that, click submit and it's going to bring you to the page here that tells you your information was received. So it takes about 5 or 10 minutes to actually get the email from the company, in which case you will open it and see there's an attachment with your proof of funds letter. If you don't see it within 5 or 10 minutes, check your spam folder. And then if you still don't receive it, go ahead and resubmit. Okay, and then when you go to your email and you actually do get the email from the company, this is what it looks like right here. All right, so here you'll see this is the name of the property that we're making an offer on. And then our company name or your personal name will appear here in the email, as well as the purchase price of the house here. Okay, and then they do give you the funding department information in case the realtor or the bank or anyone wants to contact them as well. And that is how to get a proof of funds letter to submit with your offers.
Okay, so now you've got your proof of funds. You've already talked to the realtor. You've got all the listings that came at you, the 30 to 40. You've narrowed it down by running the 25 to 1. You've got that knocked down to 5 to 7 or so of the best deals. Now you want to make offers on those properties. So when you're making offers with realtors, you're going to be making offers based on a multiplier of the actual asking price, okay? You're going to offer before you even look at the house, Okay, we want to get these offers. We already know that by running the 25 to 1, we've filtered down to the most motivated sellers in that group of properties. So there's a high likelihood that we're going to get one of these offers to either counter or accept. But the thing is there's no sense in running out and looking at every single house before we make an offer. We want to see who's motivated by making this low offer by the counters that we get or the acceptances. And then we'll go look at those houses. So one of the things that we're going to do is you're going to create a template for your purchase agreement so that your agent can shoot out these offers as fast as possible. I'm going to be talking about that template and DocuSign in the video that you're going to go click on. Also, I'm going to teach you exactly how to make the offers based on the actual asking price. So I've got another action step for you. Go to the video, follow the exact things that I tell you to do in this video, and then start making offers with the properties that you just got from your real estate agent. I hope you're excited. I want to get these offers out, and then you guys can get some counters coming in, and you can get some potential deals under contract so you can move them to your buyers that you've already created. So anyway, go ahead and take that action step, and we'll see you later.
This is a video on how to use DocuSign to electronically sign your documents. We use DocuSign for pretty much everything that does not need an original signature. So the first thing you want to do is go to DocuSign.com and create an account. You can choose this free trial button, which will give you 30 days free. After that, you'll need to pay to use DocuSign. These are the different prices that you can use based on your company size and then what you plan to use for DocuSign. So check those out, and then you can decide later what plan works best for you. Once you click the free trial button, it'll take you to this page where you'll enter in your information. Click Get Started and get your username and password. Once you have those things, you can go ahead and log in. Once you're logged in, go ahead and click New, Send a Document. This is where you're going to upload the document that you want to send for a signature and add your recipients. So click the Upload button and go ahead and find where you stored the document. Under the Add Recipients box, you'll go ahead and put in the name and email address of the person that you want to send this to. And if there's multiple people, enter in their information as well. Alright, and then you can choose to set the signing order right here. So if you want it to come to you first, just make sure there's a number 1 by your name. If you want it to come to you last, you can also drag and drop and switch that order. Now if you scroll down, it'll allow you to change the subject line here. So this is what the person that you're sending the email to is going to see in their subject line. You can also enter a message so when they open the email, in the body of the email, there will be a message associated with the button that they need to click in order to sign. Once you're finished doing that, go ahead and click Next. Now normally, when you put in a contract or your document, it's going to be completely filled out already. All you want to do here is sign. So make sure everything's filled out before you upload your document. Now to put the signature blocks, make sure that the name over here to the left-hand corner is selected, and then click on Signature. Put the sign box where you want it to go, and then click. You can also do this with date signed and the initial box if you need to. If you scroll down below, there are other fields such as a checkbox that you can use, a drop-down menu. You can put notes, whatever you need over here. Now to change the person and get the next person's signature, just click on the other person over here on the left-hand side, go down to Fields and click Signature. Do the exact same thing and click where you want the sign box to go. Once you've finished doing that, you can click Send up here in the right-hand corner, and it will go to the email address that you provided under the Recipients box. Once everyone has successfully signed, you'll get an email that the document has been completed. Once you get the email to sign, this is what it will look like. So click Review Document. And then you can click Start and Sign. And that's it. You click Finished, and it will automatically send it to the next person in line. Once the document is completely signed, once again, everybody who is involved will get an email saying that the document has been completed with the attached completed signed document. And that's how to use DocuSign to electronically sign documents.